Today's guest is a first-generation Haitian American who grew up in and around a family with a strong appreciation for culture, an exquisite taste for the arts, a hyper-focused work ethic, and a thirst for knowledge, all of which are the defining contributor to her present-day success and beyond. Spanning over the course of almost 2 decades, this Haitian queen has left her mark on the fashion and beauty space, collecting the proverbial quote-unquote infinity stones of beauty, as I like to call them, one major fashion house at a time. Currently, the global head of fashion and beauty for Snap Inc., her prior engagements are something to marvel at, as she's been employed with many fashion houses carrying out various roles, including her first gig at the niche publication entitled Honey, also Vibe Magazine, Glamour, Teen Vogue, Allure, and many more. It was a pleasure and an honor to not only learn about the fashion and beauty side of things, but to get an insight of what it was like climbing the ladder to success, starting at the very bottom from a confident, intelligent, hardworking woman's perspective. So please welcome my guest, the incredible Rajni Jacques. You're now listening to the Sauce Talk Podcast. What up, everybody? It's your boy Al Siggity Sauce, and welcome back to the Sauce Talk Podcast. Today with me as a guest, I have a legend in the fashion and beauty space who's carved her name across the industry for almost 2 decades. She's also married to one of my good friends who also was a previous guest on the Sauce Talk Podcast. You may remember him as David Dowd of Division East, and she's currently the global head of fashion and beauty over at Snap Inc. So please, without further ado, welcome my guest, Rajni Jacques. What's happening, Rajni?
Nothing.
How are you?
Everything at the same time. Thank you for the intro. I'm good.
Well, that's not everything. You have a laundry list of achievements, accomplishments, the whole nine. So that was just a mere glimpse.
True. But happy to be here. Happy to talk.
Cheers. Thank you.
Sauce Talk.
That's right.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate, I know your schedule is absurd and your time is very valuable, especially weekends.
Mainly because honestly, mainly because of kids. And now that they're at the age where you got to schlep them to this and that and play dates and birthdays.
Yeah.
So of course it's work too, but work never ends for me.
Yeah. What's funny is you're the first guest. Usually I do a minor, I wouldn't want to call it a background check, but I do a little dive just to get myself familiar and in the headspace for the podcast. And you're the first guest that I've had where if I go on Google and start typing your name, I type R-A-J and it spells the rest of your name out for me. It's absolutely absurd. Swear to God, you could try it yourself.
Interesting. I don't think, I'll go on my Instagram, but I don't think I've ever really Googled myself lately. I think at first, I would, definitely, but I haven't Googled myself in a while.
Yeah. No, it's wild.
Good to know.
I was like, this is absolutely absurd. This is crazy. So you have an impressive resume and you've been adding to it and climbing up the ranks, so to speak, for years. And I said, almost 2 decades.
Damn, yeah, you're right. Right? Grateful and blessed to have the 2 decades, but yeah, it's been a minute since I've been in this industry and just the many iterations of the fashion and beauty space. So wow, when you say 20 years, I don't think that in my head.
Yeah, of course.
But as you say it, I'm like, oh wait, we're in 2024. Damn.
Yeah. It's nuts. You're a hard worker on top of that, and you love to learn new things.
Always.
Which obviously is a big contributor to your success is learning. Learning is key, right, in anything. And the thirst of knowledge and wanting to learn new things is always going to make you a more seasoned individual, if you will. But with that being said, I'd like to get a good base on your life prior to the fashion and beauty space, just so we can get all familiar with you and a sense of where it all started. So where did you grow up?
I was born in Queens at Long Island Jewish Hospital, grew up in Richmond Hill, Queens. When my parents came to this country, that was where they came to, was Queens. So my first kind of, like kindergarten and, the younger years were there. And then we moved to New Jersey, Manalapan, New Jersey, which for me was so different.
Oh, yeah.
From, where I was born and where I grew up at first, to the point where when I would tell people like, oh, I live in Manalapan, I would say I live on a farm, which I really did not live on a farm. But that was the first time like you had a front yard and a backyard, like 1 acre on each side.
Yeah.
You would see deer, you would see even squirrels to me, or raccoons. Like that never really happened. I mean, you would see rats and queens.
Yeah, well, big ones.
But like that never, so I always thought I lived on a farm in my head, which was a total lie. But to me, it was just so vastly different from Richmond Hill that I thought I really did live on a farm. But yeah, Manalapan, New Jersey is what raised me. And it was one of those towns at the time. I don't know what Manalapan is right now, to be honest with you, but growing up there at the time, it was a very Jewish neighborhood. There was Manalapan, Marlborough, Old Bridge, Howell. I was in that, I think it's called like the Freehold Borough District. And it was a town where I was one of a handful Black people. My family was at the time. And there were things that I would, feel like I needed more of, just because there weren't many people that looked like me there. There weren't many people that understood me. And when I say understood me, it's not just the fact of me being, a Black woman, or at the time a Black girl, but also my parents are Haitian. We spoke a different language. We spoke Creole, French at home. The holidays were different. My Thanksgivings were different. Just the whole culture was very, very different. So there were a lot of things that, at a young age there, having to grapple with, that at home culture versus the when I step out of the home and go into school, which was vastly different. So oscillating back and forth, or now they have a word for it called code switching.
Really? Code switching?
Code switching.
Never heard that.
So code switching is essentially like when you are in an environment that is, not to say unlike your other environment that you feel quote unquote safe in, you have to kind of make sure that you adapt to that environment. So you kind of adapt to the cultures, the likes, the dislikes of that current environment.
Yeah, code switching.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like another podcast that's specifically on that called Code Switching.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a whole thing. But, I do think I grew up in a neighborhood that was wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It was airy. I was able to do things, play soccer, was on the traveling soccer team. So there was a lot of beautiful things, about Manalapan and where I grew up. But there was also a lot of hard things when you hit your adolescence that I kind of had to, sometimes was very hard, to the point where like high school, I really didn't love it. I did well in high school academically, but I just didn't love high school at all.
Yeah, high school is a very difficult transitioning period for a lot of kids.
It's a lot.
Especially like you said, you're Haitian, so you were of a minority within that area. So you could obviously feel automatically like an outcast, let alone the actual, how these people project their views on you.
And I mean, back then it wasn't popular to be Haitian, just like I guess you can say right now it's not popular to be Haitian either, with like all the rhetoric, but like...
Oh yeah, it's true.
I literally, like, there were things that I had to kind of like, well, do I say that I am, just so that I don't have to like...
Yeah, it's rough.
Like that type of stuff. And I was just a young girl. You grow into your body. There was just so many things being an adolescent that really made my time in high school. I don't want to say it was hard. I just didn't love it.
I get you.
I just didn't love it. Yeah.
Well, I have a question regarding since you're of Haitian descent. You just clearly said that. You are personally the first generation American.
Yep.
And I've taken notice how proud you are of your culture, of your ethnicity, and of your heritage, which anybody should be, right? But
of course,
I took notice that you were in a different way. So if you're able, for me, to spiritually tap into that and verbalize the importance and significance of your heritage, and describe what does the word Haiti itself mean to you, and what does it channel within you?
I mean, there is a sense of pride. There is a sense of release. There is a sense of knowing that the history is very deep, being the first Black nation to kind of defeat their colonizers, which were the French. So it was the first free Black nation that allowed other nations, in South America, within the Caribbean, to kind of follow suit. And so growing up, it's weird. Growing up with your family, my father and my mom always instilled to be proud of where you're from. Be proud that you could speak another language. Be proud that your food is different. Be proud about everything Haitian. And that's just, I feel like also my peers, like friends who are my age, who are Haitian too, we are all very much very ecstatic to say we are now. Even back then I was, but I just knew kind of the dynamics of having to deal with or speak to, and sometimes you just don't want to get into it with certain people,
course,
so you're just like, let's keep it moving. But I think for me, being first generation, is there's two things. Knowing that my parents came to this country for a reason, and that reason was to give me a better life. And when I say better life, it's not necessarily like, America's better. It was to give me more opportunities in that sense. Because America, there are opportunities. You can seize those opportunities. Like there are many different careers that, when I was in high school or even college, I didn't know about until I kind of graduated, which honestly, the career that I am now was not a career that I ever thought I could work in because I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, they don't advertise that at all.
It's like who does that?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, being a Haitian woman now is just, I have so much pride in where I come from, even if there's a lot of negativity around this ethnic, this culture.
At the moment.
But I think just in general, like since I was young, there were so many things that like were said or, back in the 90s, when the AIDS epidemic was obviously, that
course,
time, like from the 80s to the early 90s, a lot of Haitian immigrants and Haitians that were in America could not donate blood. And so, we galvanized my parents and many other, Haitian people walked across the Brooklyn Bridge in protest of, hey, you're literally singling us out and saying that we cannot donate because all Haitians have AIDS. So, and that's just honestly like the smallest snippet of things. But since I was young, those were always things that were always at the forefront that I always had to combat. But I didn't mind, especially as I grew older and mature into myself, I didn't mind combating it.
Yeah.
I didn't mind taking on that challenge where probably my younger years, I'd probably just like keep it moving. But I think with that, my parents instilled, my uncles and my aunts and just my community of Haitians always instilled that no matter where you're from, you should be proud because there's a lot of great. And the country of Haiti has definitely given to kind of the global world. Yeah.
A lot of rich culture there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tons.
Both of your parents are doctors, is that correct?
Yes.
What kind of doctors were they specifically? And how was that childhood growing up under two physicians?
So my mom, when she came to this country, she was a pediatrician, and that's what she was studying at Harlem Hospital. And then I can't remember, years-wise, she switched to psychiatry. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Psychiatrist.
That's a jump.
Yeah. So she was a psychiatrist at Rikers Island, which was,
wow.
insane.
Wow.
But my mom became a doctor because my mom is a very giving person. She loves to help. She wants to kind of exert her energy in how do I help this disenfranchised group or these disenfranchised people? And so I think for her, being a doctor, being a physician was more about giving back into a community of people. My dad had always been a psychiatrist. So, growing up in that household, was obviously with everything, there's a curse and there's the beauty of it all. The curse is like, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, not because I had passion for it, but because I thought, oh, this is what I guess I have to do when both of your parents are. And also in like the Haitian culture and many immigrant cultures, there's only like 3 or 4 jobs. Like you are a lawyer, you are a doctor, you are an engineer, or you are a teacher. Like any of the fringe stuff really doesn't bubble up. And when I say that, it's just like, those are the things. And you have to think about like the mentality, like we're coming here, we're going to work to make sure that our children get the same or even more opportunities. But in order for them to get more opportunities, they need to be in sectors that we know will make money for them, so that they can feed the next generation, which is their kids. So I think the way that they think is it's very literal in the way of what you can do for yourself, what careers you kind of partake in, study, in order to make your life easier down the road. Yeah.
It's safe and you're planning ahead, so it's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing at all. But it's also just what they knew. You know what I mean? It wasn't like my mom was exposed to all these different types of like careers and things, that fringe careers that you can do. Because back where she was in Haiti, where she grew up, and then when my parents met in Guadalajara, Mexico, because they both went to medical school there before.
Oh, they met there. Interesting.
Yeah, they met in Guadalajara. So for them, what they knew is what they knew.
Yeah.
And, my mom has said to me, coming to America, I realized people did so many other things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the same for me, just, But, living with my dad, who right now isn't doing so well, but he was a psychiatrist, and he was very much like your typical psychiatrist. Like, he would argue with me just to argue with me at times, or like we would kind of talk back and forth, and I'd be like, oh, the sky is blue, and somehow he can come up with an argument of why the sky really isn't blue. How you perceive it to be is blue. And so it was challenging. It was one of those like, can't you just, A, B, C? But he always wanted to kind of like mix it up. And I think with him too, and David, my husband, always says this, like, sometimes it was just to get a rise out of someone. Like, he knew the right answer.
And the right buttons to push.
But he knew how to kind of like make you think a little further, which served me well in high school and college. I never, what the answer was or what the status quo was given to me, I always had to dissect it to see, like, is it really the status quo, or are you telling me it's the status quo because that's the only side, or that's the only view that you know to be right? So I think it served me well, but as a daughter of a psychiatrist, sometimes it was annoying.
Yeah. Now that you say that, so when I was reading about you and I found out that your parents were physicians, I didn't know what kind. Automatically, everybody assumes, surgeon or whatever, primary care physician. Now that you tell me that, it kind of switches my thought process up. Alone, growing up in a home with 2 successful physicians in general could be, I guess you would feel a lot of like that, this applied pressure, right?
Yeah.
To not only pursue what they did, but to just navigate through life the way they kind of did, in a very structural way, right? The creative stuff is kind of like non-existent in their brains to an extent. Like you said, they weren't exposed to all the different types of careers, this and that. But now that you say that they were psychiatrists, I could imagine that could complicate things. And you were just talking about your transition into high school when your emotions start kicking in, your social anxieties, things of that nature. Did you ever find yourself, since your parents were both psychiatrists or psychologists, whatever, if I'm pronouncing it correctly? I know they're both 2 kind of different things.
So they were medical doctors. So
medical doctors.
Medical doctors, psychiatrists.
Okay, so they were psychiatrists.
Yes,
okay, so did you ever find yourself like overanalyzing situations as well as people? And do you think that it kind of made you navigate through your young adulthood in a rough way because of the stuff you were receiving at home?
I don't think it hurt me in the sense of like navigating through all that stuff. I think in a way, especially with my mother, it allowed me to be more open about how I felt.
Which is a good thing.
Which is a great thing. And it allowed her to be very proactive in if she saw something in me that maybe I was sad or, whatever, it prompted her to say like, hey, why are you sad? Like what, question me and try to get those answers out of me. And so I would definitely say it was more of a conversation where probably when I was younger, I was probably a little more squeamish about having, but as I got older and still in high school, it opened me up a bit. And so there was a conversation there. And I remember one story with my mom, and this is before she made the transition into psychiatry. Obviously a girl coming of age, talking about sex.
Birds and the bees, the whole nine.
Yeah. Bees and boys and blah, blah, blah. And just to protect yourself, all this stuff. And I'll never forget, we were having this conversation and she had this, and don't quote me on it, but maybe it's called DSM. It was like a medical book. And it had all different kind of like skin rashes and it just had like everything from skin rashes to STDs.
Really?
It was a book that, and this is, the internet was there, but the internet was not what we know the internet to be.
Yeah.
So everything was visual in this book. And I remember we were talking about it. She took the book, she put it in front of me, and she showed me. So these are the things that you can get or can happen to you if you have unprotected sex and don't protect yourself.
Which can be scary.
Yeah. And I just remember that has stuck with me because
I'm sure
I was very much like, well, I won't be doing that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And so
scared you straight.
Yeah, it scared me straight. But I think, them being psychiatrists, especially with my mom, it allowed me to have a dialogue with her where we were never a duo that was like, we're best friends, like we party together. That never happened. She was my mother. I respected her. I loved her. I would shop with her on Saturdays and Sundays. We would do our thing. But she was authority to me. And so there's a respect there. But that's sometimes I think, as a kid, you're like, they're going to hate me or tell me I'm bad if I do this. But somewhere, somehow, she knew how to speak to me. Like as if we were on the same level, and we definitely were not. Yeah.
I guess that's a skill in itself, right?
Yeah.
Learning to speak in general.
Yeah, yeah. Learning to speak.
In a special way.
Yeah, and as psychiatrists, learning to get more out of people than they want to divulge. And so maybe that helped me in a way.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not only very cultured, but you have a high appreciation for the arts, whether it be music, fashion, painting, stuff like that, right?
Love.
When did you start noticing and developing a taste for the arts? And was there anybody or any influence, rather, that was close to you, whether it be family, friends, that kind of put you onto that stuff at an early age that helped you gain a taste for it?
It's weird, I've always loved doing. And when I say doing, I always loved creating, whether it was creating a sweatshirt. I forgot what grade I was in, but I had an image of my head of a sweatshirt with clouds. And so I bought a blue sweatshirt and I glued cotton balls on it. So I always had this thing of never wanting to be stagnant, always wanting to try something, do something.
Yeah.
My family obviously were huge, huge inspirations. Even though my mom and my dad were very much by the book career-wise, the one thing that, they instilled in us was you need hobbies. You know what I mean? You need cultural hobbies. So, my mom put me in violin. We were in piano. I remember my older brother and we took an art class in Marlborough, New Jersey, where still to this day, my mom has my brother's canvases. And I think maybe two of mine. She has more of his canvases, though.
Oh, sick.
But she put her and my dad made sure we had other things outside of academics.
Oh, that's great.
Where my dad was more of the harder on the academics. I'll never forget coming home from school, we would have our homework. And then he would take an encyclopedia and put it and say, you need to read this and tell me what this is about. So there was more academic on his end. But the one thing about my dad that till this day, I know is a driving force into creativity is he's the one that taught me about music.
Really?
He taught me about all different types of music. He introduced me to so many different artists that, you know, whether in Haiti, we have this type of music called compa. Obviously, getting to know all these different compa artists. My uncle Alex also plays in a Haitian jazz band.
Oh, yeah?
So that was also part of it. But my dad, like, introduced me to Stan Getz.
Oh.
You know, introduced me to just wayward artists that sometimes, you know, they weren't the most popular artist, but like, oh, you should check this out. He was very, very instrumental musically in what I listened to. He's the one that introduced me to one of my favorite bands to this day, Everything But the Girl.
Oh, wow.
And I know everyone knows of Missing, but if
Sick.
you knew their music, it's more folky. But he's the one that introduced me to them.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
He knew so much about music. It was crazy. Whether it was rap, hip hop, pop, he always like even, you know, now he's sick, but like even to the days that he was on it and like doing all that, like he would always be like, so what's up with this artist? Like, oh, do you like that new song that came out? Like,
oh, that's great.
All the time. So music wise, he definitely kind of steered me in a direction of always trying to explore, always trying to, not just the top 40, but like try to find the underground, the underground people. And
the deep cuts.
The deep, try to find the deep cuts. I'm trying to think what else. I'm blanking on right now, but there were so many other artists that he kind of introduced me to.
That's beautiful, yeah.
That was really, really awesome. And then my brother, Vladimir, is an awesome artist.
Love that name.
Yeah, like just, he can draw from cartoon to like whatever. And so he gave me inspiration to be able to do things off the cuff. And yeah, so I want to say like most of my inspirations were at home.
That's great. That's the best place.
Yeah, instead of outside. And then I definitely want to say my grandmother, Lucienne.
Oh, that's why your daughter makes sense.
And that's also my middle name, is Lucienne as well. But she was a lawyer. She's still alive. She's still kicking.
God bless.
But a lawyer, a UN lawyer. But she loved art. She loved opera. She loved it all, like all the things that were very upper echelon, as one would call.
Yeah.
She loved that. And so she's the one that really, I would say, kind of opened my eyes to, you know, Vogue. It was actually Vogue Paris. She had a issue.
Oh, is that right?
Of it. Because she wouldn't live here. She would always go back to Haiti, and then she would come to America, I want to say like December till like the end of January, and then go back. But she introduced me to, wow, like what are these pictures in this magazine? Because I think at the time I would read magazines, but they were always like, what were those magazines like where like the boy band, it would like Right On, like, you know, like those, do you know what I mean?
With the exclamation at the end.
Exactly. It was those types of magazines where there wasn't anything like visually stimulating. You just wanted to see like the cute boy band or like,
teeny bopper magazines.
Teeny bopper magazines. That's what I understood to be a magazine. And she introduced me to that. She introduced me to Time. You know, just like the magazines that were very photojournalistic.
Yeah.
As well. You know,
a lot more substance.
Yeah, Vogue Paris was not photojournalistic, but like, you know,
no, I understand.
She just introduced me to like, wow, I didn't know people create that.
Yeah,
but I mean, again, she introduced it to me. I at the time never thought like, oh, maybe this is what I want to do. It was just again the hobby. Like, make sure you have a hobby. Make sure you have something else that you're passionate about besides just your studies, because you want to be more. You want to be well-rounded. You don't want to be like, you know,
exactly. One-track minded. You don't want to be tunnel vision.
No, you don't want to be tunnel vision. And you want to, I would definitely think, you know, the other thing that my dad taught me was you want to live life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I live it too much and take too many hobbies on. You're surrounded by one of my hobbies. What most people don't know about you is that you dabble in the DJ realm. Oh. You like to spin classics from time to time. When did you personally start getting into that and spinning and doing things of that nature?
To be honest with you, kind of going back to what I said, I just loved music.
Yeah.
I just loved hearing different things. And at the time, I was super, super into, I guess, the genre. I think they call it like Portishead. Like
my trip hop.
Yeah, like I think
So good. So damn
and
good.
so I just loved music. And for me, music was I would take music over TV any day, because for me, music is a soundtrack to your life. Like when you're walking to the train, there's kind of like this monologue of, beautiful violins or beats that are, in your head. And so for me, music kind of told the story of what I was doing. And then one day I think at the time I was working at Nylon magazine, and there was a couple of people who, being introduced to David and dating him. I remember he would have his skate, his skate parties, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. But he would DJ for David.
Not Chase, right?
No, Max Jerome.
Oh, Max Jerome. Yeah, yeah. I remember Max Jerome.
So
wow,
Max
that's a name I've heard.
Yeah, so he was an awesome DJ, and I remember I said, listen, I think I just want to do it for fun. Like nothing crazy. I want to do it for fun. So he kind of showed me how to do it. I was learning through him, from him in the beginning. And then I was at Nylon magazine at the time, and this guy, Steven Rojas, who at the time I was friends with him. Big up Steven Rojas, wherever he is. But
hi, Steven.
This is when Serato just came out.
Oh.
And he was working for like hotels, like putting on parties.
Okay.
And so he got me like not a bootleg, but like a cheap Serato machine. I plugged it and I was like, okay. And I was learning how to do it.
Yeah.
And through there, I don't know how it happened, probably because I take that back. I kind of know how it happened. Working at magazines, you get to interact, you get to meet people all the time. And there was a company, they were called Q Models. I don't know if they exist. They were having a holiday party. They didn't have a DJ, and they needed a DJ. And I was like, oh, I think I could do it. If it's 2 hours? Okay, cool. So that was my real first DJ gig.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was at some Midtown hotel that had a pool in the middle. I DJ'd from like 6 to 8, and that was it. But that kind of started my side hustle.
Your thirst for it too?
My thirst, like, I'll be honest with you, like, I had fun doing it, but there was so much pressure because when you DJ, you also have to, like, read the room. You have to, like, know, like, hey, those last 2 songs were sleepers.
You got to switch it up.
You got to switch it up. So you have to kind of be, at least for me, I had to be on it. I had to be very observant of how people were moving in the room. Was there too much chatter, or were people like dancing? So that was a lot to clock all those things, especially for something for me that was just a hobby.
Yeah.
But yeah, that gig opened
doors
me
for
up
you
to so many other gigs. So I did like Longchamp, Mango. I did one for Mango. I did one for Diptyque Candles.
Oh, really? I love those candles.
Yeah, and so it just opened me up to just, different people, different brands, and that's how my DJ career
That's sick.
started.
DJ Rajni Jacques. That's so sick.
I don't do it anymore, but I can make a hell of a playlist.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, you know what's funny is, as you were saying, that being a DJ is similar to being a comedian in the sense of being able to read the energy of the room and knowing how to switch on the fly and make adjustments was what makes you a good DJ or a good comedian. So that's pretty interesting.
And I love that part, but sometimes I'm like, it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a lot. I mean, imagine being a DJ, having to carry crates of records up 20 flights of stairs and all that.
That's crazy. When I first started, there was a place in Williamsburg I DJ'd, and I only DJ'd crates. As we got maybe like close to like 900 vinyls from Scent.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Did he? Shout out Scent, baby.
We still have them today.
Really?
We still play them. They're in our basement. Yeah, and it was a pretty sick collection. It's very eclectic.
Awesome.
It moves from different genres, different types of music, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Hi Dave. I don't know if you can see his feet. No, you can't on the sky cam.
I forgot.
Her husband's here today. Hi Dave.
My DJ, I remember Tame. I was
Rest in peace.
I was part of his crew called the Spin Cyclists.
Spin Cycle. What a good name. What a sick name. I want to bring it back really fast, and then we'll go forward.
Yeah.
It's regarding to your Haitian background. Being that you're Haitian, I assume that there's lots of remedies and natural tonics, botanical creams and stuff that were traditions for not only you growing up, but for Haitians as a whole, right?
Yep.
So I was curious, do you have any specific stories or creations that you can share with the viewers and listeners today regarding your cultural heritage?
I mean, you did not have to go to a CVS.
Yeah.
You're in a Haitian household. L'huile mesquite is kind of like the Haitian godsend.
Oh, I like that. Sounds good.
You know, I remember one time because I played soccer and I must have did something to my ankle. It was like super, like I couldn't fully walk on it.
Yeah.
So I remember my mom was like, "Oh, don't worry, just I've got you." I was like, "Okay." And she made me put my right foot into just like a bowl of hot water.
Okay.
She put some like effervescent thing that just made the water like.
What, like an Italian brioche or something like that? What they call it?
I don't even know what it was. To be honest, maybe it was like something, but like the water started doing its tingly thing. And then afterwards, she took my foot out and she put l'huile mesquite, but she also put cornmeal in it.
Interesting.
And massaged it. So there was like kind
of an exfoliating.
Yes. So it would exfoliate, but like it also was like, it felt so good, but also hurt.
Yeah. But it's like that perfect medium where it's pleasurable pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just remember her doing that, washing it down, wrapping my foot again, putting it in the hot water. I had to stay there until the water got cool. And then that was it.
So
then
good.
a little more l'huile mesquite. And then I was fine the next day. I'm not even going to lie.
I'm sure. Yeah, there's nothing like those classic remedies.
There's so many with your hair. My mom, every Sunday was hair day. So she would take eggs, avocado.
Really?
And she would just whip it up.
Like a guacamole almost?
Yeah. A little bit of oil. And this would be, I'm sure l'huile mesquite was also in there because that's like the thing that was in every remedy.
That's like your tussin?
Yeah. Pretty much it's tussin. Yeah. And then she would put it in the hair, braid my hair in 4 sections, coat my hair from root to end, put it in a plastic bag, then put me under a dryer. I had to sit under a dryer for 45 minutes so it can really kind of
it's a lot of work.
Then she would wash my hair out. Wow. Then we would kind of twist it. There was no blow drying or anything. She would twist it or braid it. And then, Wow. And also honey with cornmeal on the face for a nice exfoliant.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Cornmeal, that makes perfect sense. Cornmeal.
Yeah, just for a nice exfoliant. And then, honestly, Dove bar soap.
Dove is sick.
Was like...
Dove's an unsung hero.
Yes, was like the Haitian, like, oh, all you need is Dove. Like, you don't need L'Oreal this. You just need...
Oh, Dove is sick.
Honey, and you need Dove. And then that was... And this was the time where, remember, like, Noxzema was super huge. And they would have those commercials.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it was honey, cornmeal, and a Dove bar soap.
Dove is sick.
And ice.
My wife still uses Dove to this day. Bar soap.
It's so good.
Their ice cream bars are fire.
That's so good.
I don't even know if that's the same company.
Neither do I.
It looks like it.
I don't think I've had...
Same font.
I don't think I've had a Dove ice cream bar, but...
Sick, creamy, milky goodness. Nice, evenly spread chocolate, hard layer exterior. Sick. Go get that. So if I'm correct, your first job was at a niche publication called Honey.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm correct. So I would assume that this was your first step into the industry.
Yeah.
So how long were you there? What was that experience like with it being your first foot in the door, so to speak?
Honey was, wow. Like when I think of Honey magazine, I get like goosebumps because Honey, imagine it being 17 magazine for young Black and brown girls.
Oh, okay.
So that's what Honey, started off as. I obviously read 17 because that demographic was me. It was young at the time, but like Honey was cool. The first cover was Lauryn Hill on the cover, and like her
Really?
skin was just beaming. Her dreads were just perfection, and there was like a honeycomb background behind her.
Oh.
And I remember seeing this and getting it and being like, what is this? How did no one tell me about this? I forgot what store I was, and I kind of like was walking, and I was like, wait, what is this? Became super obsessed with it. And honestly, it was like, let me look at the masthead. How do I get in touch with these people? How do I do something with them? Like, it was one of those things, in your life, there are moments where, something has shifted.
Yeah.
That was my shift. And the shift wasn't necessarily like, oh, I found a magazine that I could read. It was more of, oh, I found a magazine with girls that look like me and are interested in the same things as me. And I'm assuming that girls that look like me put this magazine together. I don't know the answer to that yet.
But it felt right.
But it felt like, it felt like a portal into something else. I was in college trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. My freshman year, I was like, all right, I'm going to be pre-med because that's what I knew.
Yeah.
And as I was going through that, I was like, 1, I don't love these classes. 2, I know this is not for me. 3, my mom sat me down and was like, listen, being a physician, being a doctor, you have to love it because you have to put in the work. It's not something like once you pass a test, it's done. You pass a test, you got to pass another test.
Yeah.
Medicine has innovations. It gets, every day something new happens. Every week something new happens. So in order to be in this profession, you have to have a love for it or else you're going to resent it. And the one thing that we don't need in this world is physicians who are resenting their job or physicians who are clearly just in for it for money. So once she told me that, I was like, well, let me drop that chem. Don't need it in my life. But still, like, I still was very confused as to what I wanted to do. So I always loved, not necessarily writing, but I always loved journalism in the sense where it felt like I was always searching for something. It felt like going to a vintage store and trying to find the best Levi's jeans. Like, what is kind of like that thing that makes me move? Like, what is...
Yeah.
I've since a young kid, I've always had a hunger to know more, to find more, to do more, to see more. And yeah, like I was just like, okay, so what do I do? So I did communications and journalism and political science in college.
Okay.
Again, still not knowing what I want to do. Found Honey and was just like, what
is
is
it.
this? Like, how do I make my move? How do I blah, blah, blah? And randomly coming back, because at the time I was at Rutgers, randomly coming back on a train, New Jersey Transit, this woman that was sitting in front of me had another magazine. It was called Essence Magazine. And now,
I was going to ask you about that.
So Essence at the time was, it's definitely pivoted and has a new POV now, but at the time Essence was very...
Was it like the adult version of Honey?
Yes, it was very kind of like, she's established, she has a career.
Yeah.
She's a 9-to-5er. Like, the
What about
women,
Ebony? What about that one?
Ebony was this, Ebony, I would say Essence and Ebony were...
Happy medium?
Yeah, happy medium,
similar?
but Ebony I felt like was more business. Like,
okay. Yeah, I get you.
Obviously it was for the Black community, it was for the Black family, but Essence was a little glossier.
Okay.
And she was sitting in front of me and we just struck up a conversation and she was like, yeah, I work at this magazine. And I was like, oh, you do? And again, like, I read Essence because like all the Black women in my life read Essence. Or when I would go to the beauty salon, there was an Essence. So I read it. And so she's the one who was like, hey, give me your email me, maybe you could do an internship. And I was like, wow, bet. I emailed her like maybe like 3 times. She never responded to me. Then she finally responded to me and was like, sorry, all the internships are taken for the semester. But I do know of a girl, one of my friends, she's working at this new magazine called Honey. I know that they're looking for interns. Here's her email.
Oh,
and it was kind of like a divine thing because I was already obsessed. I just didn't know how to reach anyone there. And so,
so that's how it happened. Now you're there.
That's how it happened. It was Sydney Bolden was the woman I reached out to who became kind of like my everything in the sense of she was chic, she was smart, she just had a sense of humor on her. She was sarcastic. She was literally everything that like I wanted to be. And I interned for her. And that's kind of my first foray.
That was your start.
Into this world that I never knew existed. When I tell you, I never knew this world existed, especially existed for a girl that looked like me. Never knew.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful about life.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes doors open.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. It's just like, wow. Like you just feel like you just opened, like you said before, a portal, right?
Yeah, it felt...
You open this portal to a new world. And it's just like, wow, like the possibilities seem endless. And they are.
And they are. And to think like the woman in front of me who worked at Essence, I was so sad that she didn't hit me up. And finally she did. And it was like, sorry, we don't have. And, you know, as you're reading the email...
Getting disappointment
and
to happiness.
At the end she was like, but there's this new magazine called Honey. And I can definitely give you this woman's email because I know she's looking for interns. And that to me was like...
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it was meant for this place to not have any internships available because who knows if they did where your life would have made a turn between here and there. You know?
I think I probably would have ended up in magazines as I did. But I also think that being at a magazine that resonates with you, being at a magazine or any place, like forget if you're an editor at a magazine, just like in life in general, being at a place that inspires you is different than being at a place that you're there for the job.
Bingo.
Yeah. And so I was at a place where I wanted to be on those pages. Like I wanted my footprint on there. I wanted them to profile me, even though I was doing absolutely nothing. But it was one of those things that you aspire to be. I wanted to aspire to be someone that they would think of in this realm. So that was pretty cool.
No, bingo. And that's exactly how I treat this podcast. Every single guest that's on here, it's not because I want an opportunity to, get exposure for myself or to... It's because I'm inspired by the people that are on it, and I want to learn about the people that are on it. So I think that's key in anything that you do is if you have a true love and a true want for it, not just because it may get you somewhere. Because once you get to that place, you might not be happy. And who wants that shit?
And you know, life's a lot.
Yeah.
So you might as well like live a life where at least you're passionate. And I know.
Yeah. It's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do. And I would say for most people, it cannot be done.
Yeah.
You know, and if you ever get that, then be grateful for it.
Absolutely.
And run with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So when you got the job at Honey, and that was your first step into that fashion and beauty space, what did your job entail exactly?
Oh, everything from like the grunt work.
Wow.
From, hey, I need a tea. Hey, I need a coffee. Hey, someone needs to put more paper in, you know, the Xerox machine or whatever the hell the fax machine. And like all of that stuff, like grunt work. Hey, can you take this down to the post office? We have a shoot. We need someone to pick up look 52 from that designer. We don't have money for you to take it was grunt work. But again, like it was grunt work that I was happy to do because I didn't know that this grunt work existed.
Yeah.
And then as I was, you know, very efficient with her, she would say, hey, I need someone to write about this new launch of this thing. I need someone to come on set with me and help me style this shoot. And so I was able to kind of get more pieces of the cake.
Grow your whiskers, so to speak.
Yeah. As I was working with her, and that's kind of how.
Wow.
That's kind of how it all happened. And again, I was still in college, so trying to kind of like. It was like my early days of college, so still not really knowing, but because I was in journalism school, I was putting the pieces together. I was like, okay, this seems to match. And I love politics, so the political science piece was also nice. It balanced. And, again, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go to law school. Maybe being a doctor is not it, but maybe law school is, I guess, the thing I can do. Again, because I just did not see people that look like me in that creative space, in that realm. So at first I didn't know it was possible.
Thanks to those magazines, though.
Yeah, I didn't know it was possible. And finally I was talking to one of my advisors, and I was like, yeah, so, I'm studying, I'm doing this, like maybe law school. And he was like, absolutely not. He was like, is that what you want to do? Again, kind of the same conversation I had with my mom. And I was like, I don't think so, but like, I don't know what to do. Like, I haven't found that thing that makes me tick. Like, I haven't found that thing that makes me wake up at, 5 a.m. in the morning and be like, I have to be there at 6. Do you know what I mean? Like, I still was trying to figure that out. So, yeah, and as you said, everything happens for reasons. Things align, good and bad.
Yeah.
That allow you to do and be where you are.
Learning experiences. Yep. So after Honey, you would take what I would consider a big leap. I don't know if it is, at the time would be in a direction that you wanted to take, but it's a pretty big leap. It was a pretty known publication at the time. You went to Vibe magazine after that, right?
Yeah.
And you were the fashion accessories editor for Vibe. So what made you take that switch and go there? Because there were two vastly different entities at the time. That was what was that environment change like for you?
It was hitting the big leagues, to be honest with you. So before, when I was at Honey, then I kind of was doing a stint there was this designer, Christian Louboutin.
Oh, of course. Just this designer. just this designer.
Just your designer. And
Christian Louboutin.
Yeah. I loved that job, but it was more PR, so it just wasn't it wasn't for me. Like, I loved it. Christian was awesome. Some of the people I worked with were great, but I got a call for Vibe magazine, and I was kind of just like, Now, you have to remember the timing. Vibe magazine in the late 90s, early 2000s
was popping.
Huge. And why was it popping? Because hip hop at the time could never be covered by your W magazines, by your Vogue magazines. They didn't want to touch it. It wasn't for them. Yeah. It just, like, for them, it was a little like, they were giving like, oh, that's not what we do. That type of thing. And so any hip hop artist, any R&B artist being on a cover of a magazine, you would either have to be on Vibe, Honey magazine, maybe Double XL, like, those were the publications that would put a hip hop artist on the cover. Yeah. And so Vibe was vibing. Oh. So you go there. When I got there, I was just kind of like, okay, so when am I going to see the celebs? Because they would like roll in and roll out. Yeah. And that was under Mimi Valdez, who was the editor-in-chief of Vibe at the time. And it honestly was an awakening. It was kind of like, all right, this is a small team, which means you have to work hard. Yeah. And so being at Vibe really taught me how to do a lot with a little, how to help work cross-functionally, let me write something for this department. Let me help style something for that department. Let me try to find new brands to bring into the department. So yeah, it was awesome. And then my boss at the time was this guy, John Moore, who was just trying to find the correct word, a perfectionist in a way that blew your mind. like his references for photo shoots and for things was just, was so detailed.
Ooh, I like that.
In a way that like never thought possible. And that, I think, was when the love of a visual and what that meant was really born, was via him. He just had a knack for creating and like putting things together and making sure there was a historical reference to it.
Ooh, I want to look that guy up.
Yeah, like, do you know why we're shooting this? Well, we're shooting this because this happened in 1978, and this is referencing this photographer.
Wow.
And to me, like, it's not that I hadn't been open to that, but he was just so bullish on making sure that the references were right. Ooh. That I was just blown away. So yeah, it was literally kind of a 411 in magazines, in marketing, in, front facing with celebrities.
Yeah.
What you can say, what you can't say.
And even then, it's way different than now.
Oh, and then
it's
was
like
way
night and
different.
day.
It's night and day because there were blogs, there were things, but it wasn't like you weren't on your phone like it was a different time, a different day. And then John left, and then Vibe hired this guy Memsor Kamarake, who,
Japanese, I suppose.
Actually, he always gets that, but he is not.
What is he?
He's African. He's from Sierra Leone.
Really?
Yeah.
The name sounds so Japanese.
It sounds very Japanese, Kamarake. But again, giving me another boss that, had a very, very kind of like poignant point of view for what the magazine should look like, what it can look like. Again, really big on references, really big on historic events and happenings, and how do we make them, I don't want to say commercial, how do we create those things so that the community of now that's reading Vibe can ingest it, but also know that there is history behind it. And again, super detailed. So at a very young age, I had bosses that were extremely detailed and helped me do research. Like, it's not just a picture. Like, go back, see why that picture means so much.
Yeah.
This is not just a color. Go back and see why we are doing this. And that has really, really helped me, not just in, the magazine editorial realm, but just in general in life.
Yeah. Makes you realize everything has a purpose. And when you really direct it with such detail and such passion and such culture behind it, that the execution is like bar none.
Yeah, the execution, and, Memsor, like, just had a knack for it.
I love that stuff.
Like, just had a knack for it, and like lived his everyday too. And that was, I think for me, that was one of the main things. Like, the way he was on the magazine was one way, but the way he was in life was also kind of very similar to the magazine. Like, he was diligent. He was very kind of like,
I love that stuff.
Yeah. It was pretty awesome.
I love anybody that has like not only a high attention to detail, but a real passion driven behind them. I mean, that's just like that it translates through everything else in their life, even though there's like a certain way you have to act in certain scenarios. But when you have a little bit of that touch across all of it, it just makes everything you do that much more special.
Yeah. And everything he touched had to be special, but not in a ostentation, like not in a way where it felt like you couldn't, grip it.
Of course,
it was in a
tangible.
way. Yeah, it was in a way that made you want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that was Memsor's gift. Like, he always wanted you.
Love that name.
Yeah. He created so that you felt like you were a part of it, which is something.
I love that. So your journey from this point after Vibe is one for the history books. Your run.
I
mean, from here is when you started steamrolling the industry as far as I'm concerned. After Vibe, you went to Nylon, then you went to Glamour, then to Yahoo briefly, Madewell, Racked, Hearst, then on to, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Condé Nast?
Condé Nast, yeah.
Which is the father company that houses Vogue, Teen Vogue, and all that, and you worked for Allure and Teen Vogue. Teen Vogue, sorry. And finally, your current resting place, which is with Snap Inc. as the global head of fashion and beauty, which we're going to talk about later, but absolute insanity. And the reason I'm rattling off these houses or brands or whatever you wish to refer them as, there's one main factor that when I took this dive into your world that stood out to me the most is that although they are all part of the fashion and beauty umbrella, they all are so different from each other. Each step you took was in such a different direction, but I assume you were like Thanos and you collected these gemstones from each step right up that ladder, up that rocky staircase, if you will.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's insanity. So if you could, for the listeners, explain the differences of each said brand regarding subject matter, demographic, vision, purpose, as well as briefly describe your experience at each place and what your takeaways were from each one to help form what you became today, which is the final boss that is Rajni Jacques.
I like the final boss.
The final boss.
Oh, I'm still searching for that final boss.
That's a good thing. Never stop searching. You don't want to stop.
I never ever want to stop. Yeah, I think for me, honestly, just, you know, taking a step back, Rajni as a person, I have so many different interests. You know, I think a lot of people look at me, especially looking at women of color, Black women, and think like, oh, she only likes this or she only likes that. And that's just not necessarily the way to go about it, because everyone is different. Everyone has their different likes, their idiosyncrasies. And for me, I love, kind of going back to what I was saying, I just love sinking my teeth in different things. I love learning. And for someone that loves learning, you never want to be content or stay comfortable in a zone that you know you can crush, but you're crushing it because you can do it with your eyes closed. And so every step I took outside, you know, like, you know, vibe for nylon, there was a throughway. The throughway was nylon, we covered music. But let's be honest, like nylon didn't cover hip hop artists. Like nylon was covering downtown New York, indie artists.
More hips. I don't want to say hipster, but
you're right.
That's kind of what it is.
But that's kind of what it was. It was like more hipster. And so for me, like, I was like, okay, let me get into this realm. I consider myself to be very like jeans and tee. I'm not grungy, but I am a child of the 90s. I love 90s style. And so for me, it was just another kind of like another department in my mind that I was going to. The department already was like, that was already here. Yeah. But now I get to use that function a little more because I'm now at a magazine that caters to that demographic. And I think every magazine that I went to, it is about the demographic. Who are you serving? Who's the customer? Who's the person that's reading it?
Totally.
And being able to create and storytell, whether it's a visual, whether it's like a written story, it takes kind of that research. It takes that time. Yeah. And for me, going into nylon, I had that, but I wanted to learn more about this. Like, and again, like, doing all that again, going to glamour from nylon was a big leap because glamour was very mass. Glamour is not just New York, LA, but glamour was, you know, Arkansas. Glamour was Wyoming. Glamour was Texas. Those are the people that you serve. You know, it was women between a specific age. I can't remember the demographic at the time, but it was, I want to say like 17 to maybe even like 40s.
Oh, wow.
That read glamour because it was a mass magazine. And so again, who am I serving? What, you know, how do I create for this audience? But what I loved is I was able to take the knowledge and the things that I did at Vibe, the things that I did at Nylon, and introduce that demographic to maybe a hip hop artist or a indie artist. So I was able to inject my past into my future. And that's what I loved about working at Glamour because, you know, at the time it was, you know, don't get me wrong, it was very cookie cutter to get things passed. Like, hey, I want to introduce her, I want to do something on this, or why don't we do a story on this? There was a lot of people you had to go through. There was a lot of red tape. And so it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, but I was able to get my wins. And for me, that was kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm good now that I have this win. And so for Glamour, I learned how to speak to the mass audience. And when I say speak to them, also introduce new things that they probably would have never even touched prior. So that was great. And then from Glamour, I went to Yahoo, which was, the internet was really, now this is a
starting
time
to gear
where,
up.
yeah, like this is a time where, and even at Glamour and even at Nylon, we had websites, but people weren't.
The traffic wasn't there yet.
The traffic wasn't there, and people weren't living on their desktops. People weren't living on their phones. It started to bubble up, obviously, with the blogs and stuff. And so, like, I guess it was like your Perez Hiltons and you're like, all that stuff started bubbling up.
Yeah.
But, it was a different time. So from my Glamour days, then going to Yahoo, that's when I kind of got the 411 on how to do what I do, but in the digital realm. And anything digital, you have to be quick about it.
Yeah.
You can't be too long-winded. You have to be to the point, or else that person's going to pass right by that. And so that was kind of like my kind of, hey, here's my quick 411 into how to create for a website, how to create for that digital world, that digital demographic. And I'm so grateful for that because I do think that helped me so much moving forth. Because that's when your Instagrams, your snaps, like all
the
of
infancy
those,
stage.
That's when it started to kind of take hold. And that's when we all started just being way more on our phones. And so being able to see how that works, like what is the SEO? Like what are the words that'll pop up so that you can, that one word catches your attention so that you click into that story.
Wait, did you say SEO? What does SEO mean?
It's kind of like, all right, when kind of what you were saying in the beginning, you started Googling me and then my name automatically came up. It's being able to recognize things quickly. And so you want a story, you want to put all the words that are, commonly searched.
Keywords, so to speak.
So that people like, oh, wait, that article has to do with X, Y, and Z that I was interested about.
Yeah.
And so that was honestly a game changer for me because the direction of editorial was moving so fast towards that direction. And I think magazines started to be like, oh, wait, we do need to invest more in our digital footprint. We thought it was like a passing phase, but we do need to invest more. When I was at Glamour, I remember coming up with a story and be like, listen, I only have 2 pages to do the story, but I'm wondering if we can put like a little caveat at the bottom that says, get more on glamour.com.
Oh, and then when you go to the website, it'll have a bigger page.
Stuff that's not in the magazines. And I remember when I went to the editor to be like, hey, can we do this? It was very much like, no, this is church and state. Like digital does their own thing, the magazine does their own thing.
He or she didn't have the vision.
And that's the thing, like you have to have that, and I don't want to be like in the streets, but like when you're talking to people, you're seeing what is important to them at that moment. And what I started to see was like everyone is on their phone. Like no one's going to be reading a magazine, and unfortunately like one of the biggest magazines, which is Glamour, is only digital now. But I think that's just the way that a lot of editorials are going because, again, we're always on our phone. We're always on our desktop.
Yeah.
That's how we ingest news, articles, all of that good stuff. So, like I said, for me, it was awesome to be able to get that knowledge and that boot camp on the earlier side of my career.
That's so interesting that you say that. You wanted that footnote so bad, or whatever the proper terminology is for that, to direct you to a website so you can have both worlds collide.
Yeah.
And the person that was governing your whole project didn't have the foresight. It's crazy.
But a lot of people, I don't want to just pin it on that. A lot of people didn't see because our behaviors at the time were very different. But again, it only takes that one thing to accelerate something else. Do you know what I mean? It only takes that, like, what is that thing that made us... I remember with one of the apps, I was like, oh, please, no one's going to be on their phone 24/7. And now that I look, and I remember I was at a DJ gig. I was DJing, I forgot for what company. And the girl was like, I want to take some photos for you for the app, and I'm going to hashtag and all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, cool. But like, I was just very much like, no one wants to see a picture of me.
Yeah.
No one cares. Like, I'm not a celebrity. Like, no one cares. But what I realized after was like, that's how people live now, because your phone is your computer. And so that's just the way that we have to go. So I think, what was I at? After that, then I went to Madewell, which is a J. Crew brand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I decided after Racked, then I went to a retail, because I wanted to be honest with you at the time. I wanted to see what was the business of fashion. Like, I was on the other side creating the images, but like for a brand, what does it mean to work at a brand? Like, how can I help create a stronger brand POV? So I forgot my title was like lead creative. And what I would do was I would help with partnerships for Spotify with Madewell. And then we would create like, a pretty much digital or social campaign. We would shoot the artist. We would do stories with the artist. Like, I would have to find the artist or the people that we were casting. Like, what is the narrative going to be? Then I would work with the team and like, all right, on this day, we're going to publish this article for this artist. On this day, we're going to do that. And then work with the marketing team on like, hey, like experientially, how are you going to bring this to life?
Yeah.
And again, like another nugget that helped me understand the overall business of what it means to work in fashion. I did the PR, I did the editor. Now I was doing kind of like the marketing side of it. And so I feel like everywhere I went, I did go because I felt like I was missing that piece. And so I wanted to learn about that piece so that when I moved on, then I could take that with me to the next place. And again, I think it was just mainly I was hungry to learn. I was hungry to do more. I was hungry to create. I was really, really hungry to create. And then I went to Hearst, where I did all these kind of branded content for Harper's Bazaar, Elle, and Marie Claire magazine. And
sick.
Yeah, and then I got the call to go to Teen Vogue from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why I think the perfect analogy and reference is Thanos and collecting stones, because that's kind of what you did. You took the best piece from each environment that you were with, added it to your collection, and moved on to the next place, which would automatically excel the environment that you're in next, and then so on and so forth to the final boss level, which I speak of.
And I think for me with doing that too, I wasn't at these jobs for like less than a year. I was at these jobs for like 3.
Yeah, a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah. Like to like really like dig deep and be like, okay, like I want to learn everything here before I move on. Yeah, but
totally.
The Teen Vogue aspect was probably my most creative, where I felt that there was a synergy. Again, we're talking about a time where, in the context of the world, things were changing. This is 2016.
Oh, yeah.
So
pivotal moment
in politics, pivotal moment when it comes to just the context of like, where's the culture shifting towards?
Yeah.
Gen Z was literally making a mark. Gen Z was talking.
On fire.
They were on fire. And now I'm at a magazine that not only caters to them, but now we're changing what the magazine is about. And when I say changing what the magazine is about, Teen Vogue was always known as, Baby Vogue. And so it was very pretty, pristine, beautiful, like visuals, all that good stuff. We were still doing that, circa 2016, 2017. But now how we were doing it was in the context of, hey, real shit is happening around the world.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it. We can still do the pretty pictures, but we need to give voices to those who are disenfranchised, those who are not understood. And at the time, Elaine Welteroth was the editor-in-chief, so working very closely with her. And she had a very complete vision of what this was going to be. Same, with Marie Suter, who was the creative director at the time. Again, I'm working with people, with women that had very clear objectives.
Clear visions.
And clear visions of what this was going to be. So I would definitely say the time period there, I was just eating it up. I was eating it up. I was learning. I was doing a lot of things that were 360, like, okay, I'm working on the magazine, but I'm working on the digital. I'm also working with sales and marketing. Like, if we have an experiential or moment that's outside of the magazine that we need to tie back to the magazine, I'm doing branded content with Nike and Adidas, working.
You were juggling a lot, huh?
Yeah, juggling a lot. But honestly, two things were happening too, is the budgets were getting smaller. Oh. So then you had to do more.
That complicates things, yeah.
It complicates things, but for someone like me, it made it was great because I was able to work with the sales team, be able to work with the partnerships team, be able to work with all those different teams where before I never did.
Now you have more control.
And now
and you're learning at the same time.
And I'm learning at the same time. And now I'm pivotal to some of their decisions that they're doing on the other end.
Ah.
Yeah.
No, that's a beautiful thing. Totally makes total sense. So you've been married to the legend that is Dave Dowd for quite some time now. How long you guys been married now?
16.
16 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
How long have you been together?
Close to 20. Wow. Don't quote me on this because I'm really bad. Maybe like 21, 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
Legendary.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why I'm bringing that up. A legendary run. Continuing. Legend. The run is still going. Hopefully till we all die, all three of us. So the main reason I bring Dave up and I ask you this is because have you ever drew inspiration from your husband's interests? And what I mean by that is your husband is heavily involved in skateboarding and surfing, right? Mm-hmm. And in present day, that's become such a powerful and popular aesthetic in the fashion world. And thanks to Virgil Abloh, it became popular in the high-end fashion things when he had his time at Louis Vuitton. I'm not even saying that correctly. I'm not French. I try to flex on you real quick.
No, but I respect that. I respect that. Keep on going.
Louis
Vuitton.
Vuitton. I had to do it for you. Anyway, he started doing the sneakers that looked like skate shoes and the skateboards and stuff. So that became this, even Balenciaga's doing like a lot of weird, like wide format skate shoe type stuff.
Yeah.
So did you ever see any of that stuff coming? And did you ever personally in any of your editorials take inspiration from your husband's interests?
Of course. I think there were many times where I put a Division East hat on a celebrity that I was shooting. Little Mama, I remember.
Really? I remember that. I do remember that.
In a Vibe magazine or like a T-shirt to Jules Santana. So of course. I also think the skate culture at that time, and this is someone who's a complete outsider. I don't know crap about skateboarding.
I wouldn't say that.
No, but
being married to the legend, some stuff.
Yeah, I know some stuff, but I don't try to flex I know who that skateboarder is, where this trend came, what video just came out.
Yeah, I got you.
I have no goddamn clue. But I do think the thing that resonated with me, and when he would show me the skate videos, was there was a lot of hip hop that was used in skateboarding, so and so skateboards. What do you call it? Place or video part in that. So seeing that, honestly, I was like, oh, so I think there's like this mutually, like there's synergy between that. So when I was in Vibe, I would always try to kind of big him up and use that as inspiration to some of the shoots that we've done. Whether they were 90s inspired or skate inspired for sure, or even just like high school inspired. I remember we did the shoot, I want to say we shot it up in the Bronx, but it was half black and white, half color.
Oh, sick.
And a lot of the mood board for it that I helped my boss John with was from just skate magazines like Thrasher.
Sick.
Big Brother, I think was the other one. So like
For
I would like either download or, like copy a picture and put it as part of that. So there was for sure like synergies there that inspired me too, because some of the style I was like, oh, I kind of want to wear that.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like that's why I was curious, like if you had any foresight, because it ended up like nowadays it's like a new aesthetic that like all these high end fashion brands, along with the dad shoe, that's like a big thing.
Yeah, it's big business, and I do have to say, like, kind of, when I was saying before that when Vibe magazine was a thing, and was a tangible magazine, I don't think it is anymore, but those artists went to those magazines because the journalism was great, the shoots were fire. And I would say like late 2000s is when your Vogues and your W's, your mass magazines were like, wait a minute. Hip hop is popping. Like hip hop is making money. Hip hop is a commodity.
Yeah.
And so then they were giving the covers. They were the hip hop artists, like and R&B artists were getting covers on those magazines. And so that opened up the world for these artists, but in a way it made kind of like the coveted Vibe and those magazines kind of shrink, because now those artists were being able to be on the bigger magazine covers. I would say the same thing for you mentioned Virgil. And his background and his love of not just the street culture, but his love of curating. And I think for me, Virgil was a great curator.
Sick.
He knew where the talent was. He knew how to put together a team that could work with him, could make him better, but could also make him look good. And again, those like your Louis Vuittons and all like the brands, even like your Dior, like Kim Jones for Dior, like
sick. Love Kim Jones, the stuff he did with Dior.
They take notice of what's happening in Black culture. They take notice of what's happening in music and apply it to there. And now, 10 years ago, you would never be like, there wouldn't be a synergy. Now, when you look at these brands, it is so evident, and you could see it with like Travis Scott I don't quote me on this, but I feel like Travis Scott did a thing with Dior. Like you see these things that are happening that in my head back in like early 2000s, it would never happen.
They would never happen.
But now everything is kind of intertwined because that culture is a culture that people love. They're commodifying it in a way. Not even in a way, they are commodifying it. Yeah. So it's very, very different.
Yeah, I mean, hip hop is obviously global at this point in a crazy way.
Hip hop is pop music.
Yeah.
It's popular.
It took over everything. And I think even though I don't really particularly like this individual that much anymore, but Kanye West is a big contributor to all that stuff. I mean, there wouldn't be a Virgil Abloh, there wouldn't be a Jerry Lorenzo if there wasn't, a Don C, all this stuff.
Yeah,
he was. You speak of Virgil Abloh being a master curator. Mm-hmm. Kanye's to me like one step above. That's what he was. Not that he was physically creating this stuff.
Yeah. But again, like Kanye knew how to put the pieces together, and he had a vision. And he was when I look at and think of Kanye, he was awkward. And this is I'm talking pre all of the stuff that went down.
Oh
with
God.
Kanye, do you know what I mean? But like he believed in himself enough to know like I got this, and was still kind of like, I don't care if you like me, but I'm doing this. But with him, he was able to cultivate just
oh my God,
this wave of
so much.
remember when it was like the pretty prep boys where he would wear the pink collared shirts.
Yeah, he was a big polo head.
Yeah,
He was wearing a lot of the bear stuff.
Yeah, and just being able to kind of make it his own. So there's a lot of people within that scene that have really cultivated styles and ways of dressing and a lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you see to this day. And for me in my lifetime, it will not die out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, peak Kanye was the Graduation era when that album came out. That's my favorite Kanye album for many reasons. I don't have to dive into that.
Yeah.
But as far as aesthetics and fashion is concerned, that was when he was wearing a lot of Jeremy Scott. Yeah. He was bringing those Ato Matsumoto boots from Japan, and they had the 2 Velcro straps. Like when that time, it like there's like, you know how there's like 8 before Christ and after Christ. I always say there's a pivotal moment in not only hip hop but fashion as a whole. And there's a before Kanye and after Kanye. Now I have a lot of choice words for that man.
Yeah.
But I can't deny the impact he had on the fashion world as well as the hip hop world. Whether he made this stuff or not, it doesn't matter. He still had the taste.
Yeah, he made it look cool, and he made you want to rock it. He made you like, oh, I didn't. Oh,
unbelievable.
Wait, so I can do that? Like that's what he did. For me, peak Kanye was past graduation. I think Graduation, that whole entire bit
was the start probably for you, right?
Was a start, but I would say 808 Heartbreak and My Beautiful. Was it My Beautiful
Dark Twisted Fan? That was probably the real pinnacle moment.
Fantasy was.
That was the real moment.
That album was
sick.
Yeah, that was a. Oh, this is what hip hop could be, or can be, or was. It was just like a melding of so many different worlds that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So now you're a mother to 2 beautiful children, Diego and Lucien.
But we call her full name is Lucienne Saint Lot Columba Dow.
Oh, what a nice name.
So we call her Louis Coco.
Louis Coco. Mm-hmm. How has motherhood changed you as a person? And has it altered the way that you approach beauty within your field, as well as carrying it out in your personal life or routine? Because let's be real here, motherhood physically and mentally changes a woman permanently.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It really does. So you guys have it made in that aspect.
Yes, we do.
Being a mother, I mean, here's the thing, like, real talk. I always wanted to be a mom before marriage. And when I say that, like, I met the guy who I fell madly in love with. We got married. But if that didn't happen, I knew I always wanted to be a mom. A mom was always a higher priority to me than marriage was. And being one is insane. When I was pregnant, when I got pregnant with Diego, the change in the body itself was so raw. I mean, I documented it. Every week I would take a picture of myself. Yeah, just because this is the first time in my life that like my body is doing something and I can't stop it. I can't send it right. I can't send it left. It just does what it does. And it's beautiful, but at the same time, as a woman, especially a woman who's working in a field where aesthetics is so important.
Yeah, right.
You're like, oh my gosh, well, what's the snapback going to be like? Am I going to get stretch marks? Is my nose going to get bigger? Is my face going to get bigger and never shrink back to what it was? There's so many things that are vanity driven that, you know, kind of swirled in my head that at times would take the joy away from being pregnant. But I think all in all, I loved being pregnant. I loved going to the doctor's appointments. I loved seeing like the movements, the feet, the like, oh my gosh, he has my lips. Like you know what I mean? Like it was one of those things that it's weird. Like as a mother, you talk about it, but the feeling that it gives you inside, there's no words to describe, you know, like there's no words to fully describe it. It's just like something you do where you sit, you say nothing to yourself, and you're like, holy shit. I would sit down and just like hold my hand to my stomach and just feel him moving.
So weird.
Or same thing, as beautiful as that sounds, feel him moving and try to get off of the sofa and then be like, help me, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's two different like extremes at the same time. But him coming into the world obviously was the first. I knew it was a boy. Like I had just like that energy, like it just was in me. I always
had that intuition.
Yeah, like I just like I felt it, like, oh, and just his movements and everything. And whenever I would dream of myself getting pregnant, I was always holding a little boy's hand at first.
Really?
Yeah. Probably my Haitian superstition.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's real as far as I'm concerned.
But, you know, I loved being pregnant. I loved going through it. But yeah, there are dark days. I don't think I had postpartum, but I think before giving birth, there were like things that I'd be scared about. Like, what if he comes out and he doesn't bond with me? What if he comes out and something happens to me? You know, all of this stuff started to swirl into my head because it's the unknown. When you have your first, it's just the unknown. You don't know. Yeah. People can tell you how it's going to be. My mom would tell me stories, blah, blah, blah. It's so lovely to hear that. But everybody is different. Everybody's story is different. So it was lovely, but I definitely was scared at times. For Louis, I obviously had my first. I knew a little more. But I think when having her, I was probably more scared than the first time.
Really? Why is that?
Yeah, I think, well, one, I got diagnosed like with this thing called cholestasis towards the end. And essentially what it is, and this is layman's terms, like it's sepsis of the body. So essentially the host is fine, but the baby is not. So in a way, yeah, it's, and they don't know kind of the cause, how it came, how it comes, how it goes. But one of the things that the doctor said was like back in the day, that's why when you get diagnosed with this, you have to have the baby before 37 weeks because the fluids can be detrimental to the baby.
Get the fuck
Yeah, and so back in the day, there would be a lot of stillbirths, and that was a cause of a lot of stillbirths. And the funny thing is like how you know you have it is I was at work one day and my feet were itching me so bad. And I was like, damn, like when I tell you, like I was rubbing my feet up against like my desk. Wow. Also, my palms kind of started itching me. My stomach never itched, but David had went with his family to France for my mother-in-law Mary's, I think, 70th birthday. And I was like home alone with Diego, just me. And I just called the doctor and I was like, hey, my feet have been itching me for the past like week. I'm just calling to see if I can use, because David would have, for when he goes surfing, like a rash, this medicine for like rashes from the wetsuits. And I was like, can I use that? Could it help? Or like, because my feet are itching me to a point where like I cannot function.
Yeah.
I remember she put me on hold and was like, hey, I was like, why am I on hold for this long? She's like, you need to get to the doctor right now. And I was like, for what? I was like, I just want to know if I could use this cream or not. And she was like, I can't tell you now over the phone because of whatever. And she was like, but can you come to the doctor's office? We need to run blood tests on you ASAP. Wow. And I was like, okay. So then I had to have my friend Elle come pick up Diego. And I remember I took the 456 all the way up to the Upper East Side, went to the doctor, got tested, and then she called me and she was like, this is the reason why you have, not called me, she told me, this is the reason why we have to get you tested. There's this thing called cholestasis. We did all your blood work. We're going to see what your levels are. And then the next day, I think they called me and they said, hey, you definitely, there's like 5 different blood tests. 4 of them were so high. The 5th wasn't. Something like that. And she was just like, yeah, we're going to have to, you're going to have this baby early because we have to have the baby by 37 weeks. And
otherwise, the fluid is toxic to the baby, or they think.
I think that's toxic. It's not toxic to me,
To the
but
baby.
the symptoms are itchy foot and itchy.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I've
and
never heard of that.
neither did I before.
Cola state or coa?
Cholestasis.
Cholestasis.
Yeah. I never heard of it until she told that to me. So then, I had to. They're like, all right, well.
Oh shit.
And so I had a great pregnancy up until then, and I was like, I don't know what cholestasis is. And obviously, as a normal person, you're Googling, you're seeing, like, what are the, like, your head. I was there by myself, just me and Diego. Like, David was gone. So, like, I'm in a world like, oh my God. And, with Black women, the mortality rates are high when it comes to delivering babies.
Really?
And so for me, like, knowing, like, I felt like there was anxiousness. I was truly, truly anxious. But then she came out, and I mean, they're both such different people.
But they're so beautiful.
They're
so beautiful.
They're
so
beautiful,
unique.
so unique. I mean, Diego is David Dowd. Like, Diego is his
He has
father.
his round eyes.
And but the personality is David.
I have yet to experience the personality of both of them. I'd love to meet them both. Really would.
It's
would.
David. And like, Diego is a talker. He's more of an extrovert, but like, he's very David in that way. But I know David sometimes says, like, it's so crazy, like, Diego's confidence at a young age. I never had that at that young age. So there are things that you like look at, where Coco Bean, she has so many nicknames. Louis Coco Bean.
Louis Coco.
Yeah,
I like that.
She's an observer. She's not a talker. She observes. She's like, where's the exits in this room? I need to make sure. That's just her personality. So she reminds me more of myself, because when I was younger, I spoke when I needed to speak. I wasn't just like that wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I reserved kind of like myself for my inner circle. So she reminds me a lot of me.
God bless.
And I think she looks like me too.
God bless. They're both beautiful kids. Speaking of your husband and family in general, you have some fantastic public family photo shoots available via Google. If anybody wants to go see them out there in the wild, you got the West Elm photo shoot, which is sick. You got the Glossier photo shoot, which is sick. How did that stuff come about? Oh, there's a Balenciaga one? I missed that one.
There was a Balenciaga Couture one. Honestly, kind of going back to what we were saying, like, in the digital age, when, your Snapchats, your Instagrams, obviously now your TikToks, people are becoming, niche creators, niche influencers. I don't think of myself as an influencer by any means. That's not what I do full time. It's never been what I thrive to do.
Yeah.
It's never been what I've wanted to do, but I know that I influence. And so with that, people would come to me and say, like, hey, I really like your aesthetic. I like this. I think you're, on point or on brand for something we want to do. So we would love to shoot you for this. And so it kind of like my DJing. I did one thing, and then the next person was like, oh, I saw this.
Yeah.
And so it's word of mouth like that. But I think everything that I do connect myself with, I have to have a synergy with it in some way.
Yeah.
I have to, just because the content that I put out is not like, here's this, like, here's that. It's very much, I try to make it look like it doesn't exist, even though it does exist. Like,
gotcha.
it's like an everyday, it's part of who I am. But yeah, that's how that all came about.
Well, I love those shoots. I do. I love them a lot.
I love them for me because they're markers. And so I have family portraits. The video with Glossier with me, Diego, and Louis when she was a baby, and I'm kissing her. Like I'm like, I'll never, to have that as something that they can have, like, to me, that's cool. I'm like, you were in this commercial, but less about like the Glossier commercial. It was more like there was this moment between us at that age, and it's solidified.
Yeah.
In that video.
Yeah, I love it. Anybody out there, just Google Rajni Jacques. You're going to see a bunch of stuff, let alone these photo shoots. It'll spell it out for you. Like I said in my intro.
I'm going to do that.
I don't mean to jump, but if you type Rajni, one of the things that comes up is Jacques.
Seriously? Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
Wait.
I couldn't believe it. I typed in your name. I'm like, how's it spelling her out already? Then you hit the whole page is you.
Or it has
It's
Rajni
not like
Jacques'
it's like
husband? Wow.
two of you that I skip. It's like literally every single hit. It's like more results, and I hit more results, and it's like more Rajni Jacques. If it's not Vogue, if it's not this, it's
You're
absurd.
making me blush. Well, I'm hoping I
the truth.
inspire the youngins out there.
I don't tell lies. I tell truths. Nothing but the truth, so help me God. Always. You know what I mean? So I'm curious. What is your creative process like when you're trying to, like, I don't know, conceptualize a vision or an idea for an editorial or a cover story? Like, what is your process typically like?
Again, like
I would assume it would vary, right?
it varies depending on what it is. Is
Yeah.
the shoot a cover? Is the shoot a COB, which means it's inside of the magazine, so it's not the cover, but it's like a fashion or beauty shoot inside. Who's the photographer? The first thing is, who's the photographer? Who could be the stylist? Let's get on a call. Let's kind of hash it out.
Yeah.
What should it be? Oh, it's going to be 8 pages. Okay, what's the theme of this? Fall, whatever year clothing, or beauty trends from this season.
Yeah.
And so it really is, it has to be a collaborative effort because there's so many different players in the room.
Gotcha.
And sometimes your ideas win out, sometimes they don't, and then sometimes they're compromised with someone else's idea. And so it really is like a give and take. But for cover shoots, there is very much more of a mandate.
Gotcha.
Because the cover shoot is the thing that's going to sell the magazine, that's going to sell the story, that's going to be the visuals that get pushed out to every single outlet.
Yeah, it's a bigger deal. It's the initial thing you see.
It's a bigger deal. It's the thing that sells you into coming inside.
More pressure, I would have thought.
And so with those are always can be, a little more hectic. Usually the photographer is probably well known or has a vision from the get-go, and you go into those you go into those meetings and they say this, and it's like, all right, cool. That's great. But just for reference, we shot something kind of similar to that, 5 months ago. So let's do this and let's move it here. But again, it's an amalgamation of so many different people in one room for one vision. So sometimes those are the hardest parts, but sometimes, to be honest with you, those are the easiest parts.
Yeah.
I always found like the hardest parts are if it wasn't a cover shoot and it's a shoot in the middle of the book, who the models are. That's always kind of like, we don't want to use, that's always a back and forth. But I would definitely say the process is always fun. It's always a fun process. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Are there, you already spoken on a couple of them earlier, but are there any mentors or influential figures in the business that you look up to personally or that may have influenced your approach as far as your work goes?
Yeah,
besides the ones, obviously, that you already...
Yeah, there's so many people that have poured into me. There's so many people, who believed in me, who see my vision, who knew I could do the work. I know I mentioned before, but like Memsor Kamarake, Sydney Bolden, John Moore, was a great mentor. Elaine Welteroth, Marie Suter. And these people were all in various stages of, my growth in magazines. Virginia Smith, I'm trying to think. And I know I'm forgetting people right now. 'Cause
you had many.
I just have many people that fed into me. I had many people that gave me a chance. I had many people, even when I wasn't at my best, who said, I know you could do better. This was an off day,
Yeah.
Hit it with the next one. And so
kept it real.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think for me, I'm I'm a transparent person. I'd rather talk and figure out like what's wrong than sugarcoat things. But I also think for me too, like there's people in the industry that obviously feed into me and give me inspiration, but there's so many people outside of the industry that truly give me inspiration to do what I do all the time.
I'm
From
sure.
my family, you know, my brother Vladimir, my brother Didier, my sister Fabiola, as I said, like my mom and my dad and just the way that we were raised.
Yeah.
Obviously my husband, his entire family that I've known for just,
Decades.
you know, for more than half my life
Yeah.
have all inspired me. Dennis, Mary, you know, Miles, Pad. And then just my friends who I feel like my friends are very much a specific group of people. And my friend group is not huge. It's a very kind of
It shouldn't be huge, to be honest.
It's very like bread and butter.
Yeah.
You know, but they all know who they are and they pour into me and I pour into them. And again, like how I get inspired is by doing research, by walking in the street, by seeing people doing things. Like I love that energy. Like, oh shit, like that's happening? Oh, damn, I have been away for quite some time. Like I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah.
So, and I love kind of the younger generation just kind of telling me what's up.
Yeah.
You know? And then I'm like, oh, let me use that in maybe this project that I'm doing. You know, let me like elaborate on what they said to execute this for whatever I'm working on.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a lot of people. I've been very humbled and very grateful for the people that have entered my life.
Yeah, well, that's key, I think, is the youth. It's either fortunately or unfortunately, they dictate a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's like obviously who sets the trends and who pushes things forward. So like when it comes to music, fashion and stuff, the youth to a certain degree is definitely who you should pay attention. It's who a lot of these corporations do pay attention to.
Well,
and they feed into that monster.
They're the next iteration.
Yeah.
They are the group that you want to make your legacy, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not Gen X, it's millennials now, but it's Gen Z, and Gen Z is now it's the alpha generation.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So
is that the new...
that's, born after 2015.
It's the alpha now. Wow, I never heard that until today.
Yeah, that's the alpha generation.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm getting too old, I suppose. So in present day now, you're at Snap Inc. For those Snapchat.
Yep.
And you're the global head of fashion and beauty over there, which is not only probably your biggest responsibility to date, but it's for a company that vastly differs from anything else you've done throughout your career, right? Jumping there, what was it? Your thirst for something new, or did you have a vision as for where you saw things were going to go eventually?
I think it's
both.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think, you know, working in magazines for so many years, I don't want to, I felt like I had done everything that I could do.
Okay.
In that realm. You know, I never aspired to be an editor-in-chief. I always only wanted to be an editor-in-chief of my life. But I had done everything. I had created, and I think it was at a time where, you know, budgets were getting cut, and I personally felt like I wasn't creating on a level that I wanted to. I was, you know, it felt very kind of claustrophobic.
Okay.
In that way, and I needed something new. I needed an opportunity where I can learn, sink my teeth in, and again, like use what I know to do from my past life into my new life. And so, yeah, it's so weird because it was at the time when I was at, at this time I was only at Allure. I was speaking to a clothing brand who wanted to hire me to be their creative. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like, this is, again, another iteration. I had been at Madewell as a creative lead consultant. So I was like, all right, this this feels good. And so I thought that's the direction. And then maybe like 2 or 3 weeks going down that rabbit hole and them putting together the package, I got a call from Snap about the job, and tech was always something that I wanted to do. I didn't know how I would get into it, what I would do. Would it be through Netflix? Would it be through, there were so many things. And I took the call and I was like, okay. And I had to learn, about Snap again, because when I was on it was 2016. Snap created stories.
Yeah.
Instagram took stories.
Instagram took everything from everybody.
But they were the originators of stories. And so I would oscillate back and forth, like my picture on Instagram and then my stories on Snap. And so once I came, with this job, I was like, oh, this sounds cool. This sounds new. This is tech. This is a realm that I really haven't, sunk my teeth into. And it just felt, again, like a level up, like another portal. Like, okay, I like where this is going. Because with tech, there's so much innovation that happens, again, like
so much.
What you know on Wednesday is different on Wednesday night. And then definitely vastly different on a Friday. Yeah. It moves so fast. And I loved that pace. And so I was just like, I think this is where I want to go. And I kind of had to choose between the two, going to a brand that was very safe.
Yeah.
I knew how to do it. I would also learn there, don't get me wrong. But the tech aspect, just in my gut, I was like, this is where you want to go. This is where you want to go. So I've been there now almost 4 years.
Wow.
And I've learned tons just about the tech world, how people ingest the app, how Gen Z uses the app to communicate.
Yeah.
And what I love about the work that I do at Snap too is that the platform is a very genuine and different platform than any other social media platform. We don't even kind of like, social media is not top of mind. It's a community app, like a messaging app. I like to call it a visual WhatsApp, where your tribe and your community can speak to each other. Instead of just me typing like, hey, where do you want me to meet you? I could put a lens where I have, wearing sunglasses from a brand, or have like 2 horse ears and be like, hey, where do you want to meet? Where can we meet? And so it's super, super engaging. And that's what I loved about it. And so, I feel like every day there's a new project. There is no kind of like, hey, cookie cutter.
Yeah.
This is what my week looks like. It depends on the projects that I'm sinking my teeth into. But I work on augmented reality. I work on Bitmoji, so your avatar. I do a lot of the collaborations for fashion brands so that your avatar can wear what you actually wear in real life.
Which is super cool.
Which is so cool. We have so many exciting like brands dropping from now into the end of the year and into next year. And then creators, where I just bridged a gap between like creators and brands and bringing them together to kind of help them push their tentpoles. So it's really fun, and I'm learning a lot.
That's interesting.
I love it.
Yeah, what's funny is like technology as a whole, when speaking of just like, tech, like computers and things of that nature, that stuff grows so fast and such a rapid rate. I always wondered, like, when it comes to beauty and fashion, in comparison to the tech world, what's the difference in the rate at which those fields grow, right? But I feel like at some point, both of those worlds started to collide. And I kind of think that's kind of like the era that you jumped into, Snap, is when those worlds really started. It's like you almost got in right at the birth, right at the Big Bang, if you will.
Yeah, and honestly, you're kind of right at that. That was the time where like tech and fashion and beauty were doing this like beautiful dance together. Like, how can I use tech to kind of push what I'm doing, and vice versa. And I think for me, it is sometimes about getting in at the right time. But besides just having like a social media platform to do your bidding and to do everything, integrating with tech is brands can have their consumers wear a new lipstick without actually going to a brick and mortar.
Wow.
And be like, I actually like this red lipstick. Let me try it on. Oh, let me try on this pink lipstick. Actually, let me swipe back to the red lipstick. I like the way that this looks on me.
It's crazy.
Then you take that, you send it to your friends. Does this red lipstick look great on me? Do you think I should buy it? Totally buy it. Okay, let me click. Let me go to the website, buy. And so there's so many things there that you can kind of like dissect, like the user journey to being able to buy something without actually being there is awesome. I also just feel like going to that alpha generation, a lot of these brands want to figure out what's another way for me to reach this customer without them having to come into the store. Because let's be real, remember when I was growing up, like malls were the thing.
Yeah, sad truth. It's not there anymore.
I don't think that it's just not there anymore. Yeah, there's individual stores people go into. Like I know that there's a whole Sephora craze where all like the young girls go into Sephora right after school and supposedly wreak havoc. But we don't have that like, hey, is your mom going to drop us in the mall and then your mom picks us up from the mall? That is kind of like done because the phone has created a world where I don't necessarily have to be that. Whether you see the good and bad of that, but it's just we live in a different world.
The problem is there's a beauty in it, but there's a sadness as well. I mean, I'm more of a physical, tangible type of guy. Obviously, you could tell I like to collect things, and I really
kind of know when you were born. So you know what I mean, like
38 years old, 86, baby.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I love that. I just love like being able to go somewhere and window shop and grab and stuff. But like, we're not in that era anymore.
We're not in that era. I'm very, very happy that I grew up in the era where I remember analog and I remember it being there, but I was there for the digital movement because
sweet spot.
It was people like that spot was so sweet.
Sweet.
Do you know what I mean? Like growing up, like in the late 90s into the 2000s, like there was nothing like it.
Better.
Like,
nothing better.
And I'm not saying, people are like, well, what about the 70s and what about that?
It's different.
It's just different. The way that we functioned was on a whim for the beginning of our lives.
Yeah.
We were like, I don't know if that person's going to be there, but I'm going to show up and see if they're going to be there. And there was just like, it was just a different way of connecting with people that I see now. And I'm like, and even for my kids, like I see it. And I do want to make a conscious effort to not have them on social before the age of 17. Yeah. That is my dream because I do think
it's hard, but
I do think that takes away from their imagination.
It does.
Letting them run wild and not being afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
In a way that they can kind of create character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. What role does social media influencer culture play in shaping beauty trends today, compared to like print media of yesteryear when you were heavily involved in it?
I mean, here's the thing. With social media, you can track it. Like if you have an influencer who is, the face or one of the faces, because now I feel like a lot of brands, it's not just one.
Yeah.
They'll have like an army of influencers. You can track to see what movement they made on what product. So if they're on socials and they're hawking gold eyeliner and they're doing their thing, then for the most part, a lot of these agencies will say like, hey, can we see your analytics? So they can track like, oh, she posted at this time, blah, 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 and it reached this much of her audience. And then I can look at her posts and see people are engaging like, oh, where'd you get that? That looks good on you, blah, blah, blah. That weighs more and does more for a brand than having a billboard in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah.
Because they can track it. They can see where people are going.
Makes
And
sense.
so it's just a different ball game now. I think like now a social media manager was not a job that existed 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like you had your assistant running your social media pages. Now there's a designated person and a designated team that does that. Why?
So
because
crazy.
there's so much value in that, because you're able to reach masses and you can track for the most part. Like, hey, that ad went up at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. By 3:30 on a Wednesday, that item was sold out.
Wow.
And so it's analytically, it's just a very different ballgame.
Speaking of that, is there in your experience and your analyzation of the game in general as a whole, is there a particular time where you feel like is the most valuable to post something in that vein for your viewers?
I do not know the answer to that question, but I do know most apps in your insights can tell you that. Say like your engagement is usually high on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. So you can see, do I think that you should always follow that? Absolutely not. But I'm pretty sure like you can see that analytics, they're hidden in your insights. That like, hey, when you post this, like don't post it after noon. You know what I mean? Don't post it in the morning. I remember my one friend who was telling me like, and she's a pretty big influencer. And so she says, nope, I either have to post it before 9 a.m. because that's when people are up. And now between people waking up, the first thing they do is go on their phone, flick open, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So either post it 9, post it after 12 or 12:30 because that's when people are at lunch, or post it after 5 because that's when people are leaving.
I always think about that stuff.
So, I mean, and this is coming from my friend who is a pretty big influencer. That's her. She doesn't have like, I don't think she goes by what the app is telling her. Like, this is your highest, like, blah, blah, blah. She goes by and it's clearly worked for her. So,
no, it totally makes sense to me because I try to think about that stuff myself now that I have this podcast. Like, when should I post stuff? So there's always, it depends on where your demographic resonates the most, right? So like there's time zones.
Yeah.
So like if your stuff is more heavy on the left, like California and the West Coast, you would have to post at different times because there's 3 hour difference than like you said in the morning before work, or there's lunchtime, or there's between 5 and 6 when they're done, they're out of work, they're home, they're scrolling, eating.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I guess it's situational.
Yeah, and that's why I don't fully believe like you're mostly engaged at this time. I don't fully believe that because I do think it also depends. Like, what if you're traveling? Like, then you have to switch it up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's all honestly
situational.
It's a crapshoot.
You got to figure it out on your own.
And I do think for the most part, for tried and true creators, clearly like the most basic thing is the more you post, the more you get eyes.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain your philosophy of the ABCs?
The ABCs of what I do at Snap is augmented reality, which is, you can take open up your Snapchat, look and try on a pair of glasses, or be transmitted into kind of like an atmospheric lifestyle for a brand or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's the fun part, being able to kind of create a lens for a brand that speaks to whatever brand POV. The B for me is for Bitmoji. Again, your avatar. It's fun. You can change your avatar, change the outfit, change this, change that. And then it's just like a fun thing for me to be able to bring to life a lot of these partnerships. Like you can wear Crocs, you can wear Nikes, you can wear Brand Jordan, Converse, Versace, and then obviously working with those teams to bring this to life. And then the C is for creators, which is something that we're, at Snap very bullish about. Our creators are again, like very different. It's, they're genuine, they're authentic. It's not necessarily about the 1% of their life. And when I say 1%, like the pretty picture. On Snap, they want to see like when you wake up, like you have a pimple on your face. How do you treat the pimple? What are you eating? Do you exercise? When you're driving, what kind of car do you drive? Like, who's in your inner circle? And then they want to see the end result, like going through all that. And then at the end of the day, I have to go to a gala or I have to go to a party or something like that. So those are kind of like the ABCs. But like I said, my job it just varies depending on the time of year, if we're working on something, if we're, our big tent pole that we have. So it all depends. It all depends. Yeah.
At any point in your career, have you ever felt exhausted when it comes to fashion? Yes. What do you do to stay inspired in situations like that?
Well, I think to start with, I love fashion. I love fashion as a vehicle to storytell. I think, clearly we live in a world that is visually stimulating. Like the visual is what you see first. And so to be able to kind of look at someone and maybe perhaps tell that story in your head of that person by what they're wearing, and then potentially when you meet them, be wrong about that story or be totally right about the story, like gives you like some joy. At least it gives me joy. Yeah. But I don't like fashion in a way of having to be on trend. I have never been a trendy person. I'm a jeans and a tee, like I said, flannel shirt.
Go for comfort.
Yeah, I go for comfort, but comfort while looking cute. Don't get me wrong.
Of course, yeah.
But I have never been like, I have to get that bag. I have to get that shoe. I have to be on trend. I didn't come to fashion for that because I personally don't consider myself to be a tried and true fashion girl.
Okay.
I like the art of storytelling. I like art. I like music. I like what makes the culture move as opposed
self-expression.
Yeah. I like, how do you express yourself through music? How do you express yourself through the makeup that you wear, through the people that you hang out with? It's kind of like very much like, being one of those people, whatchamacallit? Why can't I even think of the word right now? God, like the dinosaur when they're looking at the fossils. What is that called again? Archaeologist. Yeah. My gosh, sorry, my mom brain. Like an archaeologist, like being able to kind of like sift through and find or again, like going to a vintage store and being like, all right, there's a lot here, but I'm going to find that goddamn gem in this.
And there's probably many in there.
Yes, but I love that aspect of fashion. The trendy aspect of fashion, I've never been, that has never kind of excited me. That has never moved me in that way. So being bored of fashion, I don't think I can be bored of it just because I don't look at it from that lens. I look at it from is there a story there? What can I take from that story? What can I take from that story and create on my own? And that's kind of how I see.
That's great.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see fashion. I love a good bag and a good boot. It just doesn't. It's not my It's never been my driving force. And going back to the beginning, it wasn't my driving force because I didn't know that was something that really existed.
Yeah.
Like I didn't grow up being like, I'm going to work in fashion. I'm going to work in magazines. That came way later in life.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
When I graduated from college and I still did not know what I was going to do. And that's when I went to Columbia. And it was more when I was in Columbia that I started to kind of like pivot and be like, oh, I think I can.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I think I can make this thing work. I think I can have a career in this. I think I can do it. I think there's space for me. I had to fight for spaces sometimes, but I knew that was kind of like what solidified it for me.
Oh, that's sick. Bit of a loaded question, kind of. How detrimental do you think social media influence has affected the mental health of our youth, specifically speaking within young women? And what do you think can be done to level out that tragic spike moving forward within your industry? Because it's kind of a gift and a curse, so to speak.
No, I mean, listen, even as, what did you say? What did you call me? I was a heavy hitter. Whatever. In your introduction, you had mentioned something like I was just like collecting the things.
Yeah, the stones.
The stones. But even with all that, social media does affect me.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's bringing in an ideal of what a woman should look like, should be like, and it is affecting the way our young girls are seeing themselves.
Badly.
Listen, that has always been there, from like your supermodels to your models, like, but the fact that now you get it 24/7 and it's thrown in your face all the time, I'm sure it does something psychologically, disturbing to your or anyone's confidence of what they should look like. I also just feel like, yes, social media, but like, augmenting your face and your features. I feel like, plastic surgery has gone up, probably due to being inundated with these visuals of what a female should look like, what their body should look like. And I do think that we're in a place where I think when it starts at home, where you have to educate your children that this is, in a way, again, that 1% of life. People's lives that they put on Instagram or, whatever social media, TikTok, like, and even Snap, like, that is just the one, for the most part, the 1% of your life. It's not their whole entirety of their life. So you're only getting the good parts. But you're thinking, because you're always getting the good parts 24/7, that this person's life is always good.
Which is not the case.
Which is 100% not the case. I think what we're trying to do at Snap is a couple of things. Is one, we create a platform so, you post a pic or you post a story, and people can't be like, you look whack. You know what I mean? Like, commenting on what you posted, you can kind of control that. So there's no dialogue to like whatever you post, like, you look dumb, like, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in other platforms, you could look at the comment section, and the comment sections go wild. There are no comment sections on Snap. And so I do think that lessens.
There isn't. Oh.
You can, if the creator allows you can talk to the creator directly, but like there's no like.
Yeah, I understand.
No, there's no comments. Like, take that off. Like, your hair looks dumb. Like, all these negative comments.
That's interesting.
That stick with you from people that you don't even fucking know. Like, people that like don't know you, don't live in the same town as you, don't live in the probably same continent as you. And so, for me, especially having 2 young kids, especially having a young daughter, I have to start with myself. Like, I limit my time now on how much time I am on social media, is number one. I try not to scroll in front of them because I don't want them to learn the behavior of the hand and what it is. I forget social media. I try not to say, oh, I look so fat. Oh, I look. Oh. I try my best. Do I feel it sometimes? Of course I do. I'm human.
Exactly.
But I try not to pass it down to them, these ways of belittling yourself, so that you feel like you can't achieve what you want to achieve. I try that. Am I 100% good all the time? Absolutely no. But I am very conscious, and this was before social media became a thing, working in an industry where visuals, how you look, is your passport. I had to be cognizant about that when I had children.
That makes sense.
And so social media was just like an added thing. But even before that, I had to be conscious about how I thought of myself. And I'll be honest with you, like, coming into this world at first, it was really hard because you compare yourself all the time. Like, oh, did she get that job because of this? Or, you know what I mean? Like, you compare yourself all the time because, one, working in magazines or working in the editorial realm was so insular.
Yeah.
It's not, you know what I mean? Like, you don't get it's like New York, Europe, LA and certain parts. So there's only a handful of people that get to work in this industry.
Yeah.
And so within that handful, the clutter, the noise is probably higher because these are the same people that get recycled from job to job to job to job to job. And so even I had to kind of figure out how to silence that noise and just cut through it and move on. But now that I have kids, I'm very cognizant of how I refer to my body, how I refer to myself. Even if I feel it, I'm not saying it in front of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I was wondering how you navigated through life that way, and I never thought about doing it that way. Like, regardless of how you feel, you're going to personally project it in a different way so that your kids receive it differently, regardless of how you're feeling, in protection of them.
In protection of them, because they have things now that I didn't have. Like, social media is a given. It is part of people's lives. I didn't have social media like that. We had MySpace.
Yeah.
But MySpace was a different beast. Do you know what I mean?
Totally different.
We didn't have that, like, that inundating, like, feed.
Instantaneous pleasure,
feed. And notifications.
It's dopamine hits.
Yeah, like, there's no notifications on my phone except text messages. Because I don't want to know when someone comments on this or that. Like, that is then literally kind of training me to just think, like...
Yeah, it's hard to navigate, isn't it?
It's hard to navigate.
It's very hard to navigate through. It's a weird world.
Yeah.
I struggle every day.
Yeah, and I do my part. Like, I went to my therapist and I was like, social media is part of who I am. It's part of what has made me who I am. I use it to bolster myself at times. I use it as a form of marketing, but it is ruining my psyche. And so for the past 2 years, I do not look at stories. I don't. Reason being is because for me on that app, stories is what kept me in it.
Kept you locked in.
Kept me locked in, not the feed. So I had to eliminate that. And I've eliminated that. And I'll be honest with you, it's saves me time. And yeah, like, so you have to be kind of conscious and willing to put in the work in order to get to a place where you're not constantly thinking about this. I don't post every day. I probably post once every 2 months, real talk.
Yeah.
And yes, I post stories about my family. I post stories about things I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. But even with that, I'm very cognizant of what I'm posting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of leads into the next question I was planning on asking you. Being that you're in this field, right? And your exposure to the superficial, to the posh, to this glamorous realm on a daily basis within your field. Was there any point in your career, a time or moments where you personally struggled with, like, mental health issues, or, I would assume years and years of this exposure to this type of stuff? Not only could it be, exposure to perfection and narratives that are constantly being pushed on the youth as well as the adulthood of today to the masses when it comes to fashion and beauty. I would assume that, like, even the most confident individuals, such as yourself, I consider you to be a very confident, strong woman, and not only in the field, in life in general. It would take a toll on your soul at some point.
Yes.
So have you ever had, like, issues where you struggled internally with, like, all of these things?
Yeah, of course. We're all human. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how much of a front you put up and how strong one might think I am. Like, it's hard being in a world, again, like, where visuals play such an important part of getting yourself in the door.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't even look at your resume. They just look at you.
Yeah.
And say, like, hey, come in. Sometimes even when people look at the resume, they look at the name. What does the name sound like? Does it sound professional enough? Even if the resume is identical to each other. So there's so many of these things that play a part in why we are chosen. But as, someone who's in the business, it plays a part in how I feel about myself. And so, yeah, there's therapy, someone that you can talk to that has no ties to your world, that can give you an unbiased, can give you an unbiased
opinion,
or
yeah.
opinion or like way of thinking that I didn't even think of. And so I truly, truly try my best. So, when you wake up, don't go on social media. For me, for my news, don't do it on social media. At least do it on a TV. It allows you to kind of break that bond of that feeling that you always need to be attached to it. And this is coming from someone who is attached to it, because I have to be attached to it for what I do. I have to, like, when I'm looking or thinking about creators, like, oh, let me find someone new that's like popping. I have to be on these apps. I have to be in the know. But at the same time, to protect my sanity, to protect my youth.
Yeah. No, I get you.
I have to put a boundary on that, because I don't think I was ever at a place where I felt like I would have a mental breakdown. No.
Good.
But I was at a place where I was questioning, should I be here? Am I worthy to be here? Like, can I get out? Like, there were times where you question your own self-worth. And do people see you as being an integral part of their business? And what I learned is putting the onus on someone else is always going to bring you grief, because you don't know what the hell they're thinking.
Yeah.
And you can't, as my mom said, like, you cannot get mad about things you can't control. Get mad about things you can control. And I know I can only control what I do. I can't control how someone feels about me. And again, like, that's why you have to surround yourself with people, not always that are like you, because I do think in this country we get into a place where you only surround yourself with people who have the same beliefs all the time. And so you live in a bubble. But surround yourself with people that can be transparent with you, can say, yo, you are being a little whack for this, where you can have honest conversations, and people who genuinely want to see you succeed. I've been in circles with women who, you're in this game together, and you think that they're excited for you to get to the next level, to succeed and to do all that. And you realize that, no, they're not happy for you to succeed because they want you to be their sidekick, or they want you to always be a level under. When you realize that that's not a true friendship, you let that go. When you realize that that's not, feeding into who you are, feeding into how you can grow, you let that go. But it takes maturity and a time in your life to be like, that's not serving me. Why do I always feel like shit when I talk to this person? Like, that's not serving me. So now I've learned, like, to surround myself with people who only want the best for me. Their ideas might not be the same as mine, but they want the best for me. And I think those are kind of some of the steps that I've taken so that I don't get to the place where I'm having a mental breakdown, where if I see myself going that direction, not that I can stop it, I can pivot and say, hey, I need help, or hey, go to my therapist, go to my husband, talk it out, get a hug from my kids. Like, that is where I want to be.
Yeah.
That is where I want to be.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I guess I'll comment on that, as well as incorporate that with another heavy loaded question I kind of had for you. Being a woman in the workspace is difficult on many levels,
Yes.
right? And one of them is kind of what you kind of just recently spoke on, is women working in an environment with other women.
Yeah.
It's literally a cat fight.
Yeah,
I've noticed that from like an outside observation, that women become very territorial, very jealous. Yeah. I don't know if it's within your nature, no offense.
Yeah. I don't think it's within the nature. I think it depends on the environment that you're in. There are some beautiful women who allow other women to breathe and succeed while they're succeeding. There are.
Yeah.
But I do think if you're working in an industry where one, there's not that many women within that industry, you're going to get that like crabs in a barrel. Or you're working in an industry where, especially in fashion, there aren't, well, let me take that back. When I started, there were not many women of color, Black women working in fashion.
Huh.
And so that can breed this thing where like only one could be the special one. But what I realized is there are spaces and there are women who allow you to succeed the same time they're succeeding. There are those spaces. But as you were about to, before I cut you off, like say,
No, it's
like
fine.
there are those environments where it can get catty. There are.
Yeah.
That's just like real talk. There are.
Yeah, I think there's more of those environments than of what you were speaking of.
Yeah.
And it can be kind of, just from me observing, hearing my wife's stories
Got you.
of her in work environments and like how people move around her, like when they just the fact that they're witnessing somebody else succeeding when they're not, instead of using it as motivation internally to boost yourself and to figure, okay, I got to get my shit together. Like that's dope. You're using it as more of a hateful. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is another heavy topic in the work environment as a woman, is, being in the workplace as a woman can generally be a rather unfair environment on many levels. And what I mean by that is there's multiple layers to it. Mm-hmm. So whether every man in sight is like foaming at the mouth for the opportunity to harass you or any other woman, I know, or being generally looked at as like undeserving of said position or role that you were granted, and you move up the long. It's a very, you require a position, and they try to put it towards gender, right? Yeah. So they kind of get like this overzealous hatred over like they're undeserving of that position because they're a woman. Now they're beneath me, this and that, and so it can kind of, you're getting shit from women. Yeah. You're getting shit from men. So this stuff is kind of commonplace, unfortunately. So what challenges, I guess without saying much detail, but kind of just giving like a general consensus of the situation that I'm speaking of, what challenges have you personally faced as a woman working in the fashion and beauty space regarding the topics that I'm speaking of? Yeah. And how have you been able to navigate through said space in regards to the said challenges?
Yeah. I think for me, the eye is always on the prize. And if those challenges are not part of my plan to get to the prize, then it's not that I ignore them, but I play into them without whatever the challenge is, feeling like they've got the best of me. I worked at a place where it was heavily male, young males, and I would get some of like the craziest things said to me.
I'm sure.
Like the craziest, sexually advanced. I remember this one time I was working late and there was a couple of guys there, and I was on a shoot and I was coming back to the shoot to bring stuff into our closet. And I remember they were like, they were all there, I think probably putting the magazine to bed, which is what we call closing the magazine, so it could go to print. And I like walked in, and then there was like 4 or 5 guys that were there. And as I was just like, hey, I was walking to my little like desk cubby place, and they're like, we were just playing a game. And I was like, okay. Tried to keep it moving. And the one guy said, we were playing a game of who we would want to fuck.
Jesus Christ. Not even like, didn't even use like a code terminology. Straight to the point.
Yeah, in the office.
That's nice.
And I was like, okay, keep it moving. Like, I'm not having this banter with you. First of all, the fact that you're saying this to me and you don't feel any type of way, you don't feel embarrassed, you don't feel like, just, again, okay, I need to put this in the closet so I can get my computer and so I can leave.
Yeah.
And then because I wasn't giving them like the time of day, and then he was like, as I was walking, he was like, we decided it's you're number one. And I was like, okay. And I just walked out.
Best thing you could have done.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to engage with you because it's the dumbest shit ever. And then I remember like leaving the office and being like, I didn't like how comfortable they felt.
To say that shit to you. Yeah.
And in my head, I was just like, and this is the problem, you know, like, am I giving something off that is allowing them to say that to me?
Yeah, you're like self-evaluating at a moment.
Yes, you self-evaluate to see like, what did you do in this scenario that allowed them or to make them feel emboldened to say this to you?
They're men. You don't need to say anything.
And I just looked. I remember there was one main guy and like it was three others. And I remember being like, they're all losers in my head. And I was like, you know what, Rajni, just keep it moving. Go in the office tomorrow. You know, you're going to see them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't say hi. Keep it pushing. Keep it passing. And I remember I went to the office. I did exactly that. Didn't say anything. Kept it moving. And then HR called me into the office. I don't know if it was that day or the next or the day after. I can't remember. But I got a call from HR. And they're like, hey, so did something happen the other night when you came back to the office? Like, were you being harassed on something? And no joke, because I had given them no love, I kind of forgot. I kind of was just like, did something happen? I had to like be like,
yeah,
I don't think so. I don't think so to the HR lady. And then she said to me, she was like, well, someone reported.
Also somebody outside spectator.
Yes.
Saw.
Someone was there. And afterwards I knew who that person was. But the way that the everything was set up, like if you were in a cubicle in the middle, you sat low and the walls were high. So even if I was standing there, no one could, sorry.
But you could hear.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No one could, I couldn't see who was there. But if there was someone there, they could hear everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And so this person reported it the next morning to HR. I didn't report it. Because to me, I was just like, whatever, dudes. And when she said that, and she was like, were there guys harassing you? Like 2 nights ago or something like that. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah. How do you know? And she told me someone reported it. But I think the thing for me, and this is in a way the sad part too, I remember saying to myself, fuck, I don't want them to think I did it now. Because now I'm going to be
a target,
even more of a target than I was before, which is super sad to think that, like, in my head, I was trying to figure out a way that I took myself out of the scenario, but it happened to me.
Yeah.
It didn't happen to anyone else. And maybe it has happened to other people, but that night it happened to me. And she was like, well, we know exactly who it is. We're going to speak to them, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And then I went back to my desk. I sat on it. I thought about it. I went back to HR. And I was like, yeah, someone should do something about that. Like, it took me a couple of maybe 1 or 2 hours to be like, why am I feeling like I did something, but I did nothing. I just walked my body into this place and walked out. And so I went back to the HR and I was like, now that someone else reported it, I do feel like they should be reprimanded for something like this. And I was like, my one fear is that they know it's me and I'm going to get like, the brunt of, they're going to look at me as kind of enemy number one. And she was like, no, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to say that's someone. And I was like, even if you say that, they're going to think that it's me. Anyway.
Well, fuck them.
Regardless of all that, at that time, and then I walked out, I was like, actually, as you said, I was like, fuck them. I don't care if they know it's me.
Yeah.
I don't because just the way, and in my head, for me, it was more of, they thought that I was going to be like, oh, I'm so happy I'm the number one fuckable person. Thank you. And the fact that they had like the balls to say that and be coy with it.
Yeah.
That's what annoyed me. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, fuck them.
Fuck
I don't care.
Fuck them. Well, I want to get out of that negative space.
Yeah.
And this is for all you ladies out there. I know they've been watching this and probably waiting for this moment the whole time. This is for the female or skin nerds as a whole out there.
This is for the females.
What is your skin routine like in detail, please? For the ladies.
Well, back in the day, it was just washing my face with Dove.
Shout out Dove with the chocolate ice cream bar.
Like wiping my face with like a toner or some type of cleanser and putting moisturizer on my face.
Use witch hazel at all?
Witch hazel, yep. Witch hazel was part of the routine. That's also part of like the Haitian routine that I forgot to mention. But as I've gotten older and like obviously being in the space, you get introduced to different, products. I like to touch a slew of products, but there is actually a Haitian brand called Furcy.
Furcy?
Furcy, Furcy.
Okay, Furcy, okay.
And they use, Haitians are known for this, it's called jonjon rice, where it's kind of like black rice. And so they use the jonjon to make the products for the face. So I think every woman should have a serum that they should put on, massage their face. I feel like massaging the face, releasing the tension from the face is so key every night. You don't have to do it in the morning, but I do think having like a 3-minute like releasing and massaging the face routine is so key, especially as you're getting older. You need a moisturizer at night that is going to make your skin supple. Like kind of imagine a moisturizer that just kind of plumps up the skin. You need that, especially overnight. And then one thing that I try my best to do, and I do think I do it unless I'm sick, is when you're sleeping, breathing through your nose and not your mouth.
Yeah.
That helps with kind of keeping those like cheekbones up, kind of,
Interesting.
And I do use a red light mask.
Oh, I hear the red light stuff technology is good, but it can be, they have like those beds that are like full, they're very expensive.
I don't do the beds, just like the mask that you put on your face for like 5 to 10 minutes while you're watching some TV show or,
I hear it's good.
That is good. But for me, it's mainly don't go to sleep with makeup on, wash your face every night, have a great serum, have a great moisturizer that like plumps up the skin. I love La Roche-Posay. I love Clarins. Trying to think of some other good ones. But
what's that one brand? La Mer?
La Mer is also great. I mean, if you have the coin to spend on that, yes.
Straight coin, Sonic coin.
Then yes, but there are really great things, great products. Also, your drugstore products are great too. It's mainly about taking care of your skin, drinking tons of water. If you're out in the sun, like I love getting darker. I love being like,
vitamin D.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Just making sure that you wear SPF.
Yeah.
You have to wear SPF.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I try not to like, live in that world where this becomes a thing, but a 3 to 5 minute routine at night when you're about to go to bed is key. In the morning, one thing I love to do, especially if I've had a long night, is use ice cubes. under your eye,
Makes
or
sense. Tighten the skin up a little bit.
tighten the skin up, put ice cubes or cold water, dip your skin in for like 10 seconds, pull it out, do it again. And again, massaging the skin upward, massaging here under your neck, and then really draining out your lymph nodes, I feel like has worked.
My son, since they're kids, but I feel his lymph nodes like when he's sick, and they're fucking massive. It's like crazy. I always try to grab the back of his neck, and I feel like, oh man, like I know he's either going through it or not by grabbing the back of his neck and feeling
his
like, lymph nodes
and clean it out, like push it out.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
What advice can you give to any young women aspiring in the fashion and beauty scene, who would want to follow in like the footsteps of somebody like yourself?
Advice. I think my main advice is, when I was coming up in this business, it was very much connecting with people who could open the doors for you. Again, there was social media, but it didn't work the way that it did now. And so my advice is, one, you could be your own marketing PR team yourself. If you want to be a stylist, if you want to be a writer, whatever you want to be, you have the tools that you don't have to pay for to create your own CV or your own resume on LinkedIn, on every social media platform. And so take advantage of that. Have a social media handle that's specifically for your work. Have your private one. But it's easier, especially now where everything moves so fast. Like, hey, there's a shop. Let me send you my link to my LinkedIn or my
Linktree or whatever.
Yeah, Linktree. But like, have one that's specifically just for work. Don't mix your personal with that. I think is a great way to kind of just market yourself quickly on a whim. Think of it as giving that like 30-second pitch, elevator pitch to someone. You have to think of it like that. And the great thing is now the women of today or men of today that want to work in fashion, you can be your own PR, you could be your own marketing team. Before there were gatekeepers. You couldn't touch the sun because there was someone standing at the door being like, sorry, you don't look the part to get in. I think the great thing about social media is it has democratized fashion in the way that someone in Arkansas, someone in Wyoming, someone in New York, Miami, someone in France, Dubai, can create their own persona on their own without having to pay someone to do it for them or without having to have a headhunter. I know that those things still exist and people still use them, of course. But back then, your only avenue was to know someone or to get introduced to someone. I think now with all this at our fingertips, you can kind of create, in a way, your own destiny and create your own body of work without necessarily having to tap into kind of that 1% of people that open doors for people.
Wow. What's in store for Rajni in the future? Any exciting things planned that you may want to share, or is everything under wraps?
Oh, God. I have nothing crazy. There are certain things that are happening, but they have to be under wraps.
Understood.
But what's in store for me? Honestly, like, I'm at a point in life, at an age in life, where I want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy being a mom. I want to enjoy being Rajni. I do think one thing that I do want to do that I put on the back burner is I definitely want to paint more. I love painting. A lot of our brownstone in Brooklyn is furnished by my paintings.
Oh, sick.
I love doing it. It's not for like a commercial value by any means, but when I do paint, I feel good. I feel release. So what's in store for me in the next couple of months, maybe the next year, is to paint more, be a better mom, be a better partner, be a better friend, and live. I know it sounds so cheesy. It really does. But I want to live life. I think you grow up and there's a point where you're like, and especially the year that I think my family on both sides has had in 2024, to be able to tap into your community, whether it's your family or friends, and live life in a way where you're laughing, you're loving, should be the ultimate goal. Because you don't get time back. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Time. That's
true.
the only thing that you don't get back is time. When it moves, it moves. So that and painting more, laughing more.
Good. God bless. Well, thank you for coming. I truly appreciate you coming on the show. Please plug in your please plug in your socials if you would like or care for anybody to follow and take a look at your journey.
Take a look at my journey.
Are you at Rajni Jacques?
I'm at Rajni_Jacques on, I think, Instagram, on TikTok, which I really don't do it much. I'm not going to lie. I have to like save my energy, but I'm just like Rajni Jacques. Twitter, I guess it's not called Twitter, but to be honest with you, since it's been X, it's been downhill. So
it has been. Agreed.
I kind of have like
fuck
forgotten.
Elon.
Yeah, I kind of been like, oh, I don't really. And then on Snap, I'm just Rajni Jacques. But yeah, those are my socials. Follow me. Don't follow me. Wish me luck.
Awesome.
Don't wish me luck. But yeah.
You're the best. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Wait, before we end the show, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Can I think we do need to sit down and talk about the Drake Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, you want to dive in?
I want to dive in a little because and David will tell you, I think you went live.
I do many things.
No, but
I'm shocked.
I remember we were in our backyard and he was like, you have to watch Alsace talk about Drake's latest album.
Wow.
Which was Never, oh my God, I'm having such my brain. Never mind.
Oh, the house record.
The house record.
Phenomenal.
Which I thought was, I agree with you. I thought that record
incredible.
Was a 10.
Oh.
Like, I think that record delivered happiness, soul.
Oh my God.
Like it just, it put you in a mood, whether you like Drake or not. And let's be clear, I am a Drake fan.
The GOAT.
I think
he's the GOAT.
He's put out great music that we all can vibe to, dance to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All of that good stuff. Like, do I think Drake is corny at times? Of course. But I think that he puts out good music. And I'm saying this because I remember on the cutting room floor, that podcast, Mos Def was on it, and
yeah, I remember that.
He said,
"Won't forget that."
Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, he's like Target. He puts out a lot of SKUs."
Yeah, fuck. Listen, I love Yasin Bey.
Yes,
fuck you, bro.
But I do think I do think Yasin Bey is right. He does put out a lot of SKUs, but his SKUs are good, and his SKUs have kind of like hit this generation in a way that I don't think there are very few rappers that have achieved what Drake has achieved.
Zero rappers.
We can debate on that.
Zero.
But the reason why I'm bringing this up is let's move on to the Kendrick Drake beef. Kendrick won that. Kendrick won that.
I think he won that. Yes, more from a public standpoint, from a technicality standpoint, and from the art of battle.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know. I'm not going to say yes or no.
Okay.
For the mere fact that what consists of a battle rap, right?
Yeah.
A good battle rap, a good battle in general, consists of me hitting you with stuff and you retaliating on said stuff that I said about you.
Yes.
Right? Kendrick spit all this shit at Drake. Drake not only retaliated in spectacular fashion, but he specifically addressed specific topics and things and accusations that Kendrick said at him. Drake said all those things back to him, answered him in wonderful fashion.
Yes.
When Kendrick answered back, he ignored everything and just said, "You're a pedophile, you're a pedophile, fuck you, you're a pedophile." In other words. Now, did he win the public with that? Yes. Was he strategic in the way he moved against Drake? Yes. Did he beat Drake at Drake's own game? Yes. But do I think he really won the war? And from a technical standpoint, I don't really know, because I'm a guy who loves answers. This is why I have a podcast.
Yes.
I ask you questions, you give me answers.
I hear that.
He says things, accusations. Drake delivered answers to said accusations, and he ignored all of them and just said, "Fuck you, you're a pedophile, you're a pedophile."
All right, but think about in everyday life when you have an argument with someone. Okay. Yes, sometimes they can retaliate and give you the answers to what you asked or to what they were alleging against you. But for the most part, sometimes it can be whoever is loudest, whoever has the slogan, can win. That being said, I don't necessarily think with the Kendrick, it was only that. I think Kendrick took a step back and put the puzzle pieces together.
He beat him at his own game.
Exactly. Yeah. I think Kendrick said, okay, maybe there are some of the accusations that are completely true. They're verified, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to tear apart not just the song that you put before this, but your whole catalog. From when you started in 2006? I could be wrong, when Drake fully came
I had a whole timeline written down that I obliterated at people.
Yeah, I can't remember, but
it's been a long time.
I think the thing that Kendrick did so well was, instead of getting granular, he went with the themes.
Yeah.
And so when you're listening to They Not Like Us, he went with specific themes. Did I like the song at first?
I fucking hate it.
No.
It's horrible.
Do I love Mustard on the Beat and his beats? Yes. But here's the thing that song did. There's two things in my head. Is it created a slogan and a phrase. Easily.
An iconic slogan and a phrase.
And one that now basketball teams are using when football teams are beating other football teams, they're using it. It has become part of the lexicon.
Which is horrible.
Horrible to some, but to be able to do that is a feat. I think the other thing that he did was he took Drake in a way, he spoke about Drake, and again, not granular, but contextualized it. Look at this guy. He's talking all this shit, but he's not about this shit. And let me break it down for you. And I think that was very evident, especially towards the end, where he talks about Drake being a colonizer, coming into ATL and using the specific rappers to kind of get cred, which to me was, for me, the most brilliant part of that rap was
really?
whether it's true or not, the way I set it up, now I'm having you think, oh shit. He now has his community thinking wait, I think Kendrick's right. Again, whether it's true or not, to be able to put that out there.
It's the convincing.
But I think that's what's so great about this song. And again, I wasn't a huge fan of just the way that it was at first. But after 2 or 3 listens, I was like, I get it. Then my third thing with the song is the video. The video is just a visual.
You like the video? Yeah.
It's a visual rap. Because in his video, no, but here's the thing. In his video, he references specific things. When he's going down the hopscotch, whether you like A minor.
No, he's very intelligent.
He's intelligent and he's strategic. Again, whether you believe
cinematic.
Yes. Whether you believe it or not, he places those things in the right areas.
Yes.
And so I think that song as a whole feels more robust than anything that Drake put out against him. And I don't think, and you probably know more than me, I don't think Drake came out with something after that, right? Or did he?
He came out with that other song that people tried to write off. That wasn't good. I forget the name. Heart of the Six, I think it was called.
Oh.
Didn't that come out right after that? I'm a little drunk right now, so I'd have to really double back.
I honestly, like, if you said it, I don't know. What I'm saying is They Not Like Us was the period to that beef.
No, it ended everything.
And the fact that he's playing the Super Bowl, it's been nominated for how many Grammys?
So fucking stupid. I can't wait till this shit's over. Like, I couldn't wait for this fucking Trump election to be over. I couldn't wait. I'm done.
We all couldn't wait for all this shit to be over. But after, like, that's the thing, like, for me with Drake, this is not just a beef song. This is now kind of permeated another level where I guarantee you, and mark my words, in 20 years, that song is going to be considered a classic. It is.
Here's the problem I have with the whole thing.
It's going to be considered
will
a
I
classic.
agree with you on a certain extent? I will tell you that, whether I like it or not, Not Like Us is probably the most powerful diss song of all time. This goes
Better
above
than Ether?
The Bridge Is Over. This goes above Ether. Yes, the impact that song had is far greater than any of those songs.
Yeah.
Whether I personally like them.
Yeah, I agree with you. The impact, but I also think the impact because, right, like it was kind of blasted out in so many different mediums. You know what I mean? Like, where
so many.
Back then they didn't have those things.
Different time.
It's a different time. It's a different time. I agree with you.
Do I like the song? No. I don't.
You don't dance to it a little?
No.
You don't say A minor?
I'm fucking tired of that shit.
You don't say A minor?
I'm exhausted. I'm literally exhausted from hearing it. It's very childish. Was it effective? 110% it was effective.
When
it's
suburban
childish.
kids... All right, I watched the show and, like, listen, my kids love that song. They don't know. Now Diego is, like, up to speed with, like, who Drake, why did Drake, who dissed who. I had to go through the whole entire thing with him. But... yeah, when he says when they go A minor, like the fact
that's the problem I have. Because it's such a, even though the song is so simplistic.
Yes, it's simple.
And the overall message is simple. The type of dagger that comes along with that song when you accuse somebody of being a pedophile is excruciatingly painful, not only personally, but publicly to the masses.
Of course.
That is the craziest accusation you can make against somebody.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you on that. Like, are the facts there? And again, this is coming from
you
someone
open up
like...
a can of worms, bro. This thing,
yeah, like...
now we're going to go another 2 hours.
I don't know what the facts... Here's the thing. I don't know what the facts are
I don't
there
think any of us do.
For that. I don't know. I know that he had a text message with Millie Bobby Brown, which I'm not going to lie, when that was happening, I was like, that's kind of weird. But that was
weird.
like...
he's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, but like, I don't know where the facts lay in that. And again, as we said, whether you believe it or not, he was able to kind of just put a foundation to the song, then put the visual foundation on top of it, which sticks in people's heads. And
I can't disagree with you.
It is just like one of those things where I'm just like, I'm sorry, Drake, but
no, he beat Drake at his own game so well.
Yes.
But here's the issue I have with it.
You don't like the song?
The way he beat Drake at his own game is that when a man has so much hate in his blood and so much jealousy towards another man, number one, I think that is absolutely sickening. For another man to invest that much time, that much emotion, that much energy towards another man. We were talking about you. This is going to go full circle with your career.
I mean,
right?
like, let's
talking
do
about
it.
women catfighting, right? It's kind of similar. He's acting like a female in a sense. No offense to you.
What does that mean?
He's sitting there plotting, I don't like Drake.
But it must have stemmed from something that, like, Drake, because
that's a problem. This is another problem. It stemmed from something that nobody has the answer to.
Was it
He's
the big
mad
three?
at this guy, and nobody's spilling the tea. So it's like everybody's in the dark.
But the tea is going to be spilled at one point. Like,
don't think so.
It never
I don't think so.
stays. Because they were on, what's that song together with A$AP Rocky? They were together. They've been on songs together.
You mean the song with Jay? You mean the song Poetic Justice? When Drake bodied Kendrick on that shit? You talking about that song? When he had a way better verse than Kendrick? Yes.
He bodied
he
him?
bodied him like a fucking...
I need to...
Like Joe Pesci got bodied by the Louisville Sluggers.
All right, I'm going to go back because I don't... I'll be honest with you, I don't remember anyone bodying anyone. I think who
Go
bodied...
listen to Poetic Justice.
Who bodied that song was the actual sample. Like, to me, it was kind of just like...
What, Janet Jackson?
Yes.
Flames.
Like, that sample, like, I don't care if it was Eminem or... What's that other rapper that everyone loves? Mac 10? Not Mac 10.
Who?
No,
damn, that's that mezcal talk.
No, I know.
Mac 10.
Mac 10 is great, but no, the white guy with the hair, he's super skinny.
You talking about Machine Gun Kelly?
Yes. What I'm saying is, I don't like Machine Gun Kelly. If he was on that song, I would not even care.
He's got talent, but
because that beat was heavy. That beat was heavy. So I don't care who the hell was on that remix. That beat was heavy. What I'm saying is, listen, and this is coming from a Drake fan. I think Drake has put out a body of work. Though I do think
just a body of work.
Yes.
You mean a monstrous?
It's
like,
monstrous,
it's not
but
even,
like
it's incomparable to anybody in the world.
But all right.
Literally incomparable to anybody in the world.
I think
colossal.
I think Drake is the poster boy. I wouldn't say the GOAT, but I think Drake is a poster boy of having everything go right. Because he's talented, don't get me wrong, it's not just like a whim. Everything go right for him. Has created a body of work that spans 15 years?
In counting. Okay. And counting.
The problem is, no one is ever popular for that long. You have to go through a denouement. Like you go down, then you come up.
Keeps going.
He's in a slump right now.
Nah, he's still good. Did you see what I posted in my story a couple days ago?
He's still, I don't watch stories.
I know that's right. So let me fill you in.
I don't do stories.
For the year of 2024, I don't know if it was Complex or one of these websites posted the top stream artists in the world across all platforms for the year of 2024. If you scroll through January, February, March, April, May, all the way up until November 2024, who's number one?
Drake. I'm sure. I'm not. Because
in the world.
But I understand that. Drake has his body of work scans.
He ain't in a slump.
No, but so many. Listen, let me ask you, if you were to get more granular and see like data wise what songs, I bet you they are not songs from this year or last year. They are songs that spanned from before. 110%.
Yeah, probably.
But what I'm saying is like Drake is a genius. Don't get me wrong.
Beyond a genius.
Like his songs hit. I am not discounting. What I'm saying is he got bodied by Kendrick. He's trying to kind of figure himself out, like what's my next move? Because he knows right now he's in the corny state. He knows he's in a place of like people look at you as corny. He's unfollowing his friends who were at the concert. Like he's doing like...
Well, he's doing what he should have been doing a long time ago. He's
but
recognizing real individuals.
Yes, but he should have done that before. But I do think he's going to come back with an album. But what is going to ultimately happen, and this is just my prediction, his audience is going to get less brown than it was. That's my prediction.
Well, listen, what comes up must go down, right?
Yeah.
That's a fact. Listen, that's a fact of the matter.
He will forever. I don't care if Drake stops putting out an album. In fact, I personally think when him and Kanye was having their beef, that song 6 a.m., was that 6 a.m.?
Which one? He does tons of timestamp records. Which one are you referring to?
Hold on. Now I gotta...
He does tons.
Now I gotta...
Well, while you're looking, let me talk about this.
Now I gotta look because...
You were talking about the colonizer narrative, right?
Wait, can I just say that song...
She opened up a can.
No, bro. I know. But that song bodied Kanye. Like, I was like...
Everything bodies that.
I don't know if you could come back... Wait, what is the... All right, go on. Tell me...
So you're talking about this
Certified Lover Boy.
You're talking about this colonizer narrative, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Which I immediately, when I heard that, I immediately disagreed with it. Here's the important
7
thing.
7 a.m. Unbridled Path.
Oh, I love that song.
That song
Jesus Christmas
is a...
Come on, it's a smash, bro.
It's a smash. It's a 10. And he made Kanye
7 a.m. on a brittle path. He made everybody look stupid on that joint.
Yes, but he made Kanye look so thirsty.
Jadakiss and Ninth Wonder both
thirsty.
Single-handedly tweeted about that and said, wow, this motherfucker's rapping on this.
That he made Kanye seem so thirsty. All right. So
he is, though.
No, he is. But I'm saying like that was a masterpiece of, it was just a masterpiece. Like I can't, like the texting, like instead of like you could, it's great. All right, go on. All right, I want to go.
Here's the problem.
The Colonizer.
Like we're gonna have to come back another day and record just a Drake podcast because I could literally sit here for 5 hours defending my word.
Listen,
I can't do that right now.
No. All right, so let's do the Colonizer, and then we will pick another day to really dissect. Okay. To really dissect this, because I do think this is part of like the cultural lexicon. Like,
yeah, I have many opinions. I've been studying this shit for a long time. But when it comes to the colonizer thing, this is going to come full circle with this podcast, which is kind of beautiful. Talking about you being a learner, constantly being personally a student in your world, in your realm, and that's what has contributed to your success, right? Yeah. Drake is quite possibly one of the best and biggest students in the hip hop game in history. Okay. He not only is a student, he constantly is learning. He's constantly listening to the newest and greatest. That's how he's been able to stay so relevant for so many years.
I mean, let's be clear, Afrobeats was its own thing before Drake.
Of course.
But Drake adopted it in a way that brought it to the masses in the US. I am not discounting that by any means, but like I do get a little annoyed when it's like Drake, and I'm like, Drake is not Afrobeat. Afrobeats was there before Drake. What Drake did, in a way, kind of colonized it.
No way.
Brought it here, and it's here. It's Afrobeats is African music that has existed way before Drake, and I do think being able to take that and hey guys, hey my audience here in the US, hey my audience globally, like this shit you need to be up on. Same thing, he did the same thing with Caribbean music.
But is there anything wrong with that?
I didn't say that there's any.
He's not colonizing anything. He's showing what he likes.
All right,
doing what he likes.
Yes.
And putting it on a pedestal because I fuck with this shit.
Yes.
Here.
I agree.
I want you all to enjoy this.
All right. I agree with that when it comes to the Afrobeats and the Caribbean.
Is Kendrick doing that?
No. But here's the thing. Kendrick has his own lane. There's a difference.
No, that's fine with having your own lane.
Difference.
But Drake not only has his own lane, he has everybody's lane in a fucking chokehold.
Listen. Oh, all right. Hold on. Let me just make my point before I know we're getting a little too heated and heavy.
No, that's not heated. I mean,
but no. But here's the thing. With Drake, 100%, he introduced this world
many genres.
Yes, many genres. I'm not. But I think there's a big difference with the colonization when he talks about ATL and when he talks about Future and when he talks about the rappers in ATL as opposed to...
It's a false accusation to me.
But it's different from the Afrobeats. It's different from the Caribbean music. When you see Drake, and this is just my take, I'll be honest with you, even before that rap was made, before Kendrick even said that, when I thought of Drake and how his collaborations were happening with ATL, it seemed to me, and again, I'm going to say this again, this is coming from someone who is a Drake fan. It seemed that he was like, all right, this shit is happening here. I know you're going to say, same thing as Afrobeats, it's happening here, let me bring it. But it didn't feel as flawless. I'll be honest with you. It didn't feel as flawless. I think the Future Drake partnership was Future feeding off of Drake for real. Like, let's be honest. Like, Future popped off because, in a way, because of Drake.
Everybody popped off because of Drake. Weeknd, all of them.
I see. I have to disagree with the Weeknd.
Well, the Weeknd would have on his own, but he boosted him.
Yes, I knew the Weeknd way before, like, without Drake.
So did I.
So what I'm saying is, like, I don't see the Weeknd as like a Drake.
He boosted him.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
He was tweeting Thursday lyrics. I mean, that gave him the hugest. That gave him the hugest boost. I'm sorry. Anything Drake touches, he's King Midas. He literally is. He does that song with Lil Baby, and forget about it.
Yes.
That guy's anybody. He does a song with Lil Durk. Gone. He does Astro World with Travis Scott. That is Travis' greatest joint ever. I'm sorry.
It is. I'm not gonna. No, actually, I lie.
Gone.
No. I love the song Travis does with J. Cole.
Do you?
Yes, love it. I think that to me is the best.
J. Cole's amazing too, but I don't want people to come at me for that.
No, people sleep on J. Cole.
You can't. He's too good.
People sleep on J. Cole, and I'm just like, why?
Because he's boring sometimes.
I don't think he's boring. I think he's very kind of Tribe Called Quest back in like the early 1990s. Like it's just like chill, like semi-positive. Like David Dowd does not like positive rap. It's too positive.
He likes that hood shit.
No, he likes that hood shit from West Orange. All right, like let's be real. But David doesn't like positive rap, and I don't even see J. Cole as positive rap. I see him as like loving.
He's great.
Who he is, and I think people sleep on J. Cole.
His next album, I think, is going to.
I don't think it's going to do well. I don't.
Regardless of it doing well or not, I think it's going to be his best work ever.
I mean, that song that he did with my mom brain is just.
My favorite song is the joint he did on his recent record with Daylight and Absol, because Absol to me is the greatest TDE member of all time.
Yeah,
fuck K Dot. Absol all day. But that record, I think it's called Pie.
Pie, yeah.
J. Cole's verse on that is one of the craziest verses I've ever heard in my life.
J. Cole people sleep on him, and I just want people to not sleep on him because he is, for me, he's kind of like a throwback. He reminds me of like
he's better now than he ever has been.
Yeah, like that golden age of hip hop.
He's even better.
He brings that back, but I also think he's just smart in the way that he handles his image. What? J. Cole, you see, David doesn't like positive rap. He just likes some hood shit. Killer.
I like it too, but there's a time and a place for it.
Yes.
But anyway, what I was talking about the colonizer shit.
Yes, please. Sorry,
is that, like I said, Drake is a student of the game.
Yes.
And
he studied.
He studies. He's constantly listening. He's constantly getting inspired. Mm-hmm. He likes putting on people as well as collaborating with them to take his stuff to a new height. Now, if you want to stay relevant for 2 decades or more, you have to keep up with the current trends.
Agreed.
And that's what he's doing. So how can you fault a man for... Here's the funny part about all this stuff. Let's say you call him a colonizer and he's taking the Atlanta styles and all this stuff. When he performs like them, even the UK shit, because he's a big fan of UK grime and all that stuff.
All that stuff.
When he does the UK stuff, he does it fucking better than they do, and he ain't even from there.
I don't know about that, my man.
I'm telling you, you listen to these UK guys, you listen to Dave, you listen to Central C, you listen to I'm telling you, they do not do it better than him.
Let me just tell you, Central C, I'm not going to lie, I think is a little sleepy, whack.
He goes in.
But I do... You're right.
Chip's a beast. I know. I listen to all of them cats.
No, but you're right. Drake is a student. He is able to take and meld 100%. I think the colonizer thing, again, it was a diss rap. So putting the word colonizer is always going to get the people like...
it was strategic.
It was strategic. When I think of like Drake and like ATL, I don't think colonizer. I do think of someone like, all right, I need a new hit. So whether you think of colonizer or not, that's not like, I'm not playing that game. What I'm playing is, listen, even before Kendrick said that, I always felt that with the ATL with the Future stuff. I that's just something I was just like, I wish he could just do it on his own. Like,
you know what's the problem though?
Yeah.
I listened to that record he has with Future, and I wish Future wasn't on it.
Which one?
There's
so many.
Every one. That whole album they did together, What a Time to Be Alive.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
If you take off Future and I just hear Drake,
I'm not going to lie.
I don't think Drake needs features. He doesn't need him.
I also don't think that album was great.
No, it's not.
I don't think that
people love that album. I don't think it's that great. Oh my God, people love that record.
I'm like, that what is it? The Michael Jordan air? What's that song? I thought that Jumpman. I thought that was whack.
I don't like it, but people love it.
I'm like, shut up.
That's the thing. It's like it's hard for me to talk about this in 10 minutes because we have to kind of exit.
I know we have to like wrap
forever.
It up. I know we have to wrap it up.
There's a lot. We'll do a different podcast about.
Well, I think we should do a podcast where we're talking about music because I love music.
So do I.
All the time. I feel like different genres of music just, you know what I forgot to add? My dad introduced me to this folk singer. I believe he's from the UK, Labri Sifri.
Never heard of him. Or her. I don't know who it is.
Him. He's one of like, I think he was back in the 70s, first like outward gay, like.
Oh, yeah?
You know, and when I tell you, like his body of work is so beautiful, Labri Sifri, and
I'll check it out.
And also what I didn't know is when my dad introduced me to him, this was back in like early 90s. And what I realized was so many rappers, Kanye, I'm trying to think who else, have sampled his music and his song.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
sounds so familiar.
He's a great artist too. Wait,
can I just
familiar. Can I just play it on here?
Yeah, you can.
Because it's really
you can connect via. Actually, I don't know if we should. YouTube might fucking ban me for playing music.
On your own,
I'll do it.
He's great. But anyway, we need to do a one-on-one, just music.
I'm down.
Not
Let
Drake.
me know. I'm down.
I'm just saying, like,
no, music in general.
Yes. My whole thing with the Drake is that Kendrick beat him.
And you're right. And you're right.
That's it. But Drake is a great artist. I'm not taking
both of them are in their own way.
David took me to a Drake concert and was like, "Can we get out of here?"
Yeah, it's not for him. It's
True
okay.
story. PNC Bank. David's like, "Are you sure you want to be here?" And I was like,
"It's not for him."
Yeah.
That's all.
He was like, "This is horrible. I don't."
He puts on a good show though.
I think he does.
Silly.
I think he does. David.
It's not for him.
David does not.
It's not for him.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
This is awesome.
We'll do. I mean, you opened up a can of worms in the end.
No, we're going to have another session
we'll do it.
where we're talking about music.
Music, not fuck Drake.
No,
music.
not Drake. Music. We're gonna have like an agenda.
I got you. Let me know.
And I'm here.
I could talk about music for 30 hours straight. More. Forget about it. Eternity.
I don't know about 30 hours for me, but I can talk to you about it.
Well, listen, thank you for coming. I appreciate you. I had a blast.
I had a blast.
Thank you so much.